Chapter 3061. She was clearly an exalted immortal, but she usually kept a low profile like an immortal monarch. Princess Xinyu, what do you want now? Huang Luqing looked as if victory was already in her hands. Huang Luqing, you set up such a large barrier here. When the people inside wake up and see this barrier, they will be suspicious. Do you think the people inside are idiots? Ji Xinyu sneered. Huang Luqing closed her fan and smiled. You're wrong. This barrier can only be seen by the people outside. The people inside can't see it and they can even come out at will. But do you think they can come out at this time? Ji Xinyu. Her face was pale and she retreated step by step. Huang Luqing slowly approached. Princess Xinyu, although you are the young master's favorite, you have tried to ruin my plans time and time again. This is making things difficult for me. Perhaps I should kill you and end this once and for all? As she spoke, she slowly opened her fan. Whoosh! A white figure flashed over and landed between Ji Xinyu and Huang Luqing, shielding Ji Xinyu behind her. That white figure only said 2 words to Ji Xinyu. Go! Master. The one protecting her behind him was Sect Master Ziyun. Her master actually came to save her. Ji Xinyu's eyes widened and her heart surged. Master! She called out with a trembling voice. Go! Sect Master Ziyun threw out another word. Although Ji Xinyu's heart was filled with countless questions and emotions, she also knew that she could not stay for long. She turned around and flew away. Huang Luqing looked at Sect Master Ziyun, who was blocking her path. Sect Master, are you trying to betray your master? She is my disciple. Letting her go will not hinder the Devil Master's recovery plan. Sect Master Ziyun stared into Huang Luqing's eyes. Let her go. I will not allow anything to happen to her. Huang Luqing smiled and said in a mocking tone, I didn't know that Sect Master was so concerned about his disciple. With you like this, I'm worried about the great array tomorrow. There are so many disciples and grand disciples, what if you can't bear to part with them? Sect Master Ziyun's face was slightly pale, but his voice was cold. That's different. Tomorrow the array will be activated as usual. I know my responsibilities. Huang Luqing nodded. It's good that you know. She glanced at the other party and suddenly sneered. Don't tell me you also fell in love with that princess? Sect Master Ziyun was stunned. Then he shouted angrily, bullshit. This seat treats her like a daughter and there is absolutely no love between us. TSK. To think that the Sect Master Ziyun, who has always been known for his elegance, would actually swear. How rare. Huang Luqing was half mocking and half laughing. Suddenly her face changed. You may like her or treat her like a woman, but you can't delay the Devil Lord's recovery plan. If she escapes like this, she will definitely inform the people outside. Sect Master Ziyun looked up at the sky and said indifferently, she doesn't have any communication talismans on her, so if she wants to inform the other sects, she has to make a trip personally. The Purple Cloud sect was located in a remote area and was not close to any other sect. The nearest sect would take 4 hours to travel to and fro, so it would take 8 hours to travel back and forth. After 8 hours, the array would be completely activated, and the Devil Lord's martial arts would be completely restored. What was there to be afraid of? What's more, that sect is not a big one, and the highest cultivation is only Immortal Monarch. Moreover, the leader of that sect is usually timid and afraid of trouble. Even if Xinyu asks him for help, he will not come. Most likely, he will lead his disciples to other sects to discuss countermeasures, so there is nothing to worry about. Chapter 3062. Huang Luqing raised her eyebrows and said, It seems that Sect Master has calculated everything very clearly. However, I heard that this princess has the ability to travel 1,000 miles in an instant. What if she uses this technique to inform others? The Purple Cloud sect master sneered. Military advisor Huang probably doesn't know that other than that small sect that is not worth worrying about, the closest sect to the Purple Cloud sect that is qualified to destroy is at least 8 hours away from here. Even if Xinyu notifies them now, they won't be able to come in time. Huang Luqing sighed. All right, for the sake of the sect master, I will let the princess go. However, you know the temper of the Devil Lord. After he comes out of seclusion, if he sees that the princess is missing, I am afraid that he will fly into a rage. Maybe he will think that I killed the princess and then threw her corpse away. Maybe it will cause chaos because of this. Sect Master, what do you think about this? Do you want me to tell the truth, or do you want me to cooperate with you so that Devil Master can believe our reasons and then focus on the recovery of the array? At this point, the two of them were already grasshoppers on the same rope, so Sect Master Ziyun naturally chose to cooperate. Huang Luqing smiled. Sect Master is indeed a smart person. Let's go and deal with the aftermath. The two of them left together. Before leaving, Huang Luqing glanced in the direction Ji Xinyu escaped with a smile on her lips. This result was better than he had expected. From now on he was no longer afraid that Ji Xinyu would pose any threat to the Devil Master. Although the Devil Master was very promiscuous and had a lot of concubines, he was still a clean freak. No matter how beautiful or delicate a girl was, once she lost her chastity, she was worthless in the eyes of the Devil Master. Half an hour later, Xie hurried out. Just as Huang Luqing had expected, he flew into a rage when he saw Ji Xinyu disappear. He really thought that Huang Luqing had secretly killed her. Fortunately, Sect Master Ziyun and Huang Luqing worked together to create a lie, saying that Ji Xinyu had indeed escaped. Xie still believed in Sect Master Ziyun, his former master, so he stopped looking for trouble with Huang Luqing. He still wanted to go out and look for her, but Huang Luqing stopped him, saying that after Ji Xinyu escaped, she would definitely inform the others. Once the Devil Lord's identity was exposed and the Devil Lord's martial arts had not recovered, it would be an irreversible loss to the entire Devil clan. Furthermore, the Devil Lord's safety was also a problem, so the Devil Lord's recovery time could not be delayed. Huang Liuqing's last sentence was well said, "Young master, as long as you recover all of your power, you will be the strongest person in this world." At that time, if you want to find Princess Ji Xinyu, won't it be easy? Even if you want her to be your wife, it won't be too difficult. If you can't recover your strength, then young master will be desperately hunted down by the people of this world. At that time, your life will be in danger, so how can you talk about continuing your fate with Princess Ji Xinyu? These words finally moved Xie heart. After nodding, he looked at Huang Luqing and could not help but ask, "Huang Luqing, I see that you're even more anxious than me." Huang Liuqing's gaze landed on his face. After looking at him for a moment, she turned her head away. This subordinate only wants young master to fully recover. Actually, I've always been very curious. For the sake of my resurrection, you persevered for a full 30,000 years and painstakingly planned. Now, for the sake of my complete recovery, you've exhausted your efforts. What exactly are you after? Chapter 3063. A demon was a demon. Being two-faced and treacherous was the label of a demon. Xie had also returned to the declining demon world. The demons there were fighting each other for territory and no one knew each other. The demons there did not know that there was once a demon master. The name of demon master Xie had long been forgotten by the demons. After he reported his name, those demons were all confused. Time was like a pig slaughtering knife, cutting the glory of the past into pieces. Xie name was almost forgotten by everyone in the Sanskrit continent. Compared to them, Huang Luqing was so loyal that it shocked the world. A hint of sadness flashed across Huang Liuqing's eyes. Yes, what was he after? He turned around indifferently. Sharkmen are all obsessed. I just want young master to remember everything in the past. Alright, young master's complexion is not good. There are still 2 hours before the formation opens. Young master should sit down and recuperate. I'll go and make some arrangements to make sure nothing goes wrong. He turned around and left. Xie frowned. Remember everything in the past? Because he had slept for too long, his memories were indeed not complete. There was a large gap between them. However, the most important thing was that he had already remembered everything. What was the point of remembering some minor details? He shook his head and thought of Ji Xinyu again. He was still worried and looked at Sect Master Ziyun. Left Guardian, did you see Xinyu escape with your own eyes? Sect Master Ziyun nodded slightly and answered with a simple word, yes. Xie eyes flickered slightly. As long as she was fine, it was fine. It was the same when he completely recovered and went to search for her. She was the obsession of that part of his soul, and she had also indirectly become his obsession. He would not give up until he obtained her. He seemed to have thought of something and instructed, if she runs away, so be it. In the future, I will naturally have a way to make her return to my side and be my woman. Left Guardian, you can follow Huang Luqing and make the best preparations to open the formation. He was originally worried about Huang Luqing, afraid that he would do something to Ji Xinyu in advance, so he wanted Sect Master Ziyun to follow him to prevent him from causing trouble. As soon as the words left his mouth, he felt that he could not make it too obvious. However, he believed that with Sect Master Ziyun's intelligence, he would be able to guess it. Sect Master Ziyun lowered his eyes and agreed, then turned around and left. When Sect Master Ziyun found Huang Luqing, he was sitting on a huge rock on the mountain peak, lost in thought. The distant sky had already turned a little blue, and a faint trace of white could be seen. The sky was about to brighten. Huang Luqing glanced sideways at Sect Master Ziyun and said with a faint smile, "What are you doing here? Spying on me? Are you afraid that I'll secretly hurt your precious disciple?" Sect Master Ziyun's voice was cold. "Young master asked me to come." This sentence made Huang Luqing choke. Huang Luqing stopped talking and turned to look at the sea of clouds in the sky. Sect Master Ziyun didn't say anything as he looked into the distance. Shenyu should have already escaped, right? If nothing unexpected happened, she should have gone to look for Rongyue Tianlan. With Rongyue Tianlan by her side, no one should be able to hurt her. It was just that this incident had really broken her heart. He was afraid that their master-disciple relationship would be severed from now on. No matter what, it was fine as long as she lived well. Ji Xinyue did not go to Rongyue Tianlan's place. It was not that she threw a tantrum and did not want to go, but that she could not go. She was not living well. She was living very hard now. She was poisoned. Chapter 3064. After she escaped from the Purple Cloud sect, her analysis was the same as the sect masters. She had thought of all the reinforcements she could think of. Other than Rong Yuishinlin, no one else could arrive in time. She used the blue voice transmission talisman to contact Rong Yuishinlin twice, but it was like a clay ox sinking into the sea. No one picked up at all. Did he really not sense it, or did he deliberately not pick it up? Ji Xinyue finally remembered that they were still in a cold war when they broke up. Ever since she talked back to him, he had obviously become cold to her. He had been so polite that he didn't even touch her hand anymore. When he was about to leave, he didn't even greet her and just left. He hadn't returned since he left. The images that Xiejuk had shown her flashed through her mind again, and she couldn't help but have a thought. Did he really go to see Yunxi? Did he really let Yunxi look for his wife in his previous life? Looking at the images that Xiejuk and Huang Luqing had shown her, Rong Yuishinlin was indeed with Yunxi. Had they already returned to the island? Had Yunxi, that bird, determined that she wasn't Jiyu based on the aura she had left behind, so Rong Yuishinlin had completely let go of her? Now he had finally let go of everything from his previous life and flew away with Yunxi? So he didn't even bother to pick up her voice transmission talisman? No, that was fake. Xiejuk must have deliberately made it up to make her give up. She didn't want to believe it. But why didn't he pick up the voice transmission talisman? Ordinary immortals wouldn't sleep so soundly, right? Or had he also encountered an accident? Countless thoughts churned in her heart like boiling water, causing her heart to tighten and ache. In addition, she was worried about the safety of her senior brothers, but she couldn't do anything at the moment. She really wanted to cry. She really wanted to find someone to rely on so that she could cry to her heart's content. But she couldn't. Now was not the time for her to be weak and cry. She had to think of a way to save her senior brothers. She couldn't just watch them die. She closed her eyes and suppressed all the messy thoughts in her mind. Right now, saving people was her first priority. Everything else was fleeting. She couldn't let her imagination run wild. She should quickly think of a plan to save people. But even though she had thought of every single path, none of them seemed to work. What should she do? What should she do? She saw that the eastern sky was gradually turning white, but she couldn't think of a decent plan. She was anxious, so anxious that the blood in her body was boiling like boiling water. Her body was hot and her face was red. However, she was so focused on saving people that she didn't notice her abnormality. She looked up at the sky. The sky was high and the clouds were light. There was only the flowing wind around her. Standing there, she felt a sense of helplessness, as if she had been abandoned by the entire world. Too many things had happened tonight and she had suffered too many blows. When one suffered too many blows, one's nerves would become numb. Some people would go crazy after receiving a fatal blow. They would be at a loss and their minds would go blank. On the other hand, after Ji Xinyue suffered a blow, she would subconsciously suppress all of her messy thoughts and focus on the important points. She stood there in a daze for a moment and then made up her mind to run back to the Purple Cloud sect to see if she could break the array before it opened. She was going all out. Worst comes to worst, Xie and Huang, these two people would have a bloody battle. Perhaps they could also obstruct them from activating that man-eating array. Just as she was about to use the teleportation technique, she staggered and felt dizzy. Chapter 3065. Just as she was about to use the teleportation technique, she staggered and felt dizzy. After she steadied herself, she realized that something was wrong with her body. It was already the beginning of winter and her clothes were not thick, but her body was abnormally hot. Waves of heat surged through her body, and gradually gathered at an indescribable part below her abdomen. Scorching heat, emptiness, anxiety, fear, and longing, countless indescribable feelings howled in her body, causing her body to go weak. Was she poisoned? This poison was so strange. Ji Xinyu had never tasted such a feeling before. It was like pain and longing, and the faces of men flashed through her mind. It was strange. She had known many men in her life and there was no lack of beauties. However, in her eyes, they were no different from dirt and stone, and could not arouse any pink thoughts. But now, when she thought of these people again, she felt that they were all so pleasing to the eye that she wanted to pounce on them. In the end, Rongyue Tianlan's appearance appeared in her mind. In the depths of her heart, she had some kind of indescribable resentment towards him. But at this moment, when his appearance flashed through her mind, the blood in her body surged even more violently. In a trance, she seemed to see him standing not far away, looking at her with a smile. The blood in her head buzzed and her body acted before her brain, pouncing towards him. Rongyue Tianlan. At this moment, the only thing she thought of was his embrace. She wanted to jump into his arms and let him hug her. Bang! She crashed into Rongyue Tianlan's embrace. Her knees hurt terribly, and the intense pain made her sober up instantly. There was no Rongyue Tianlan in front of her. There was only a slender stone standing there. She hugged the stone and her knees hit the stone. She took 2 steps back and finally understood what poison she had been poisoned with. Aphrodisiac. When did she get poisoned? Who drugged her? Wang Luqing? Xiejuk? The latter was more likely. After all, this person always had delusions about her and did things by hook or by crook. Ji Xinyu's body became hotter and hotter, and her vision became blurry. She pinched herself again, and the pain stimulated her to stay awake. She knew that finding the real culprit was secondary. The most important thing was to detoxify. Detoxify. She tried her best to suppress her boiling qi and blood. Her fingers trembled as she rummaged through her storage space. Originally, she had a lot of medicine in her storage space. However, after being caught and fainted again and again, most of the medicine in there had been taken away. Especially the last time she fell asleep. Xiejuk was probably dissatisfied that she had used Rongyue Tianlan's medicine, so he took advantage of the time when she was unconscious to loot all the medicine in her storage space. Now, there were only 3 or 4 bottles of golden sword medicine in there, and Xiejuk had forced them on her. There was no medicine for that. There wasn't even an antidote for the drug. Bastard. Despicable bastard. Despicable. Ji Xinyu bit her lips tightly, using the pain to keep her mind clear. This was the first time she had encountered such a situation, and her body was so hot that she couldn't stop shaking. It was a cold day and she wasn't wearing thick clothes, but she felt so hot. It was as if she was wearing a large cotton-padded jacket during the hottest days of the summer. The heat made her feel irritated and irritated. The tip of her nose, forehead, and chin were all covered in sweat. It was so hot that she wished she could tear off all the clothes on her body. Chapter 3066. However, her rationality told her that she absolutely could not do that. She looked around anxiously and finally saw a small river not far away. She staggered and jumped into the river. The river water was bone-chilling and slightly relieved some of the heat in her body. It also made her slightly confused mind clear again. She squatted in the river for about a quarter of an hour and knew that the cold river water could only slightly relieve the symptoms, but it could not detoxify the poison. She still needed to save people. Time waited for no one. She had to find a way to detoxify the poison. But how could this poison be detoxified? Who could detoxify her? Who could detoxify her in such a desolate place? She squatted in the river and trembled slightly. This was the first time in her life that she felt so helpless. Tears welled up, but she forced them back. She could not cry. Crying was useless. Because she had to endure the strange heat in her body, she bit her lips until they bled. She wiped her eyes with her hand, and her fingertips were stained with blood, but she did not notice. She thought of Rongyue Tianlan again. He was a medical immortal and his medical skills were extraordinary. If he was here, he might be able to detoxify her. She trembled as she took out the voice transmission talisman again. The blood on her fingertips stained the voice transmission talisman, and the talisman actually emitted a faint light wave and absorbed all the blood. Ji Xinyue's mind was filled with thoughts of asking for help, so she did not notice this. Her fingers trembled as she activated the voice transmission talisman again. Thankfully, this time, the voice transmission talisman lit up for a moment before the other side picked it up. The moment the call connected, Ji Xinyue's heartbeat almost went out of control. She let out a long sigh of relief. Heat and grievance instantly surged up. She trembled as she said, "Your Highness Rongyue," because of her unstable state of mind, and also because of the effects of the drug, her originally clear and melodious voice sounded watery and crooked, with a hint of hoarseness. Finally, a reply came from the other side. "Who are you?" Ji Xinyue staggered in the water and almost fell into the water. That voice belonged to a girl. It was as clear as jade and as ethereal as the clouds. Even without seeing the person, she could feel that the other party was a peerless beauty. Ji Xinyue stared blankly at the voice transmission talisman in her hand. The image that Xie had shown her flashed before her eyes. Rongyue Tianlan and that girl called Yunxi were walking side by side. Due to the effects of the drug, her breathing was heavy. Her body was hot, but her heart was cold. She had always been skeptical about what Xie had shown her. She had planned to ask him directly when she saw Rongyue Yuishanlin one day and ask him for confirmation. She wanted to get the truest answer from him. But now it seemed that what Xie had shown her was most likely true. Voice transmission talismans were usually carried around at all times. If Rongyue Tianlan cared about her, she would have kept a voice transmission talisman with her at all times. Now this voice transmission talisman was with Yunxi. "Hey, may I ask who you are?" the woman asked curiously. Ji Xinyu's heart had already sunk to the bottom of an icy abyss, but she still refused to give up. Forcing herself to calm down, she asked, "Where is Her Highness Rongyue? You asked him to pick up the sound-transmitting talisman?" His voice trembled slightly. The person on the other side paused for a moment, then said, "He's still resting." "Who are you?" Ji Xinyue's finger flicked again, and the blue sound-transmitting talisman fell into the river and was washed away in the blink of an eye. She raised her head and looked at the sky. The sky was about to brighten, and there was a bit of white in the east. Chapter 3067. It was a moment before dawn, and most people had yet to wake up. His voice transmission talisman was in Yunxi's hands. He was still resting. All these factors combined made it easy for people to deduce a hopeless conclusion. Rongyue Yuishanlin and Yunxi were really cohabiting, and there was a promise between them. Rongyue Yuishanlin probably confirmed that Ji Xinyue was not Jiyu through Yunxi's bird, so he finally let go of the burden in his heart and began to fulfill his promise with Yunxi. The two of them were deeply in love, and it was natural for them to do something good. Although Ji Xinyue was still a virgin and had not experienced those things between men and women, she had been in the pugilistic world and had come into contact with many flirtatious men. These men also treated her as a man, so they did not have any scruples when talking in front of her. Naturally, the men would talk about women and even some things in bed. For example, they would be tired after doing things so tired that they would not want to move. If they were really tired, even a person who was usually alert would sleep like a pig. She had been unable to contact Rongyue Yuishanlin just now. Was it because they were too tired, and could not hear or see? The aphrodisiac originally made her feel like her body was on fire, but at this moment her heart felt like it was frozen. She took a deep breath and then another to hold back the tears that were about to come. She desperately told herself that Rongyue Yuishanlin did not owe her anything. Although he had been ambiguous with her a few times, he probably treated her as someone else and doted on her. He even risked his life to save her a few times. If there was a debt, it was she who owed him. She owed him a favor, so she could not blame him. She could not blame him. But, since he did not really love her, why did he mess up her spring water? Bastard. She clearly did not want to have any feelings for him. She clearly did not want to love him. But because of his forceful intervention she accidentally fell down. Now, it was not too late. It was not too late for her to find out. After all, she had not promised him anything, and she had not even reciprocated his feelings. So it was not too late. She could still extricate herself beautifully in time. A few rooster crows came from afar. She trembled in shock and looked up at the sky. The sky in the distance was already showing a faint green color. The sky was about to brighten. Her senior brothers? No, now is not the time to be swayed by loyalty. She had to ask Rongyue Tianlan for help. Even if she didn't ask him to cure her poison, at least she had to ask him to come to the Ziyun sect to save her senior brothers. She subconsciously went to look for the voice transmission talisman, but the talisman had long been washed away by the current. She searched the water for a long time but to no avail. She hugged her arms and squatted in the water, lost in thought for a moment. Then she stood up trembling. No, she had to save herself. Azure City was a small city, and it was the closest city to the Purple Cloud sect. This place was more than 200 miles away from the Purple Cloud sect. For the people in the city, it would take a whole day to reach the Purple Cloud sect. However, for cultivators with cultivation skills, it was only a 10-minute journey. When the sun had just risen, the door of one of the most famous physicians in Azure City was filled with loud bangs. Physician Lei suppressed his anger and opened the door. Before he could see the face of the person who was banging on the door, a woman drenched from head to toe rushed in. She grabbed his collar and said 2 words in a trembling voice, "Save me." The woman's fingers were hot, and her face was also hot. There was an unhealthy red color. Her eyes seemed to be filled with water and fire as she looked straight at Physician Lei. Chapter 3068. She staggered and almost fell into Dr. Lei's arms. Fortunately, she steadied herself in time, but her body couldn't help but tremble. It was as if she wanted to do something but she resisted. After all, Dr. Lei was an experienced and knowledgeable doctor. Seeing the woman's expression, he took her pulse and frowned. "Miss, you've been poisoned by an aphrodisiac." This woman was naturally Ji Xinyu. She resisted the desire to pounce on Dr. Lei and nodded. She said hoarsely, "Save me?" It was useless. It was completely useless. Dr. Lei, Dr. Li, Dr. Zhang, Ji Xinyu staggered. She had already eaten all the pills and ointments that these doctors had prescribed for her, but they couldn't cure the aphrodisiac's poison at all. "Miss, this old man can't cure this kind of aphrodisiac." "Miss, this drug can't be cured." "Miss, please redeem this little one's incompetence." "Miss, this drug." "I'm afraid there's only one way to cure this drug, and a man's true despair." Her body was so hot that it was about to explode, and her vision was turning black. It was as if countless ants had drilled into her limbs and bones, wantonly crawling around inside. It made her want to scream, to moan. If it's not cured, what will happen? She forced herself to ask. These doctors had never seen such a strong aphrodisiac before, and they were all helpless. Of course they still admired this girl. If an ordinary girl had been poisoned by such a drug, she would have long forgotten about people under the influence of the drug. Perhaps she would even pounce on a bald or pockmarked man. However, this woman had been forcing herself to stay awake. Not only did she not pounce on these doctors like wolves or tigers, she even kept a distance from them as much as possible. However, she shouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. "If it's not cured, I'm afraid Miss will explode and die." "Miss, your life is important." Ji Xinyu rushed out of the door. It was still early and the streets were deserted. Ji Xinyu staggered along the streets in the direction of the only small building in the city. She was not afraid of death, but her life was connected to the lives of hundreds of people in the Purple Cloud sect. Therefore, she could only cure the poison. She had already decided not to marry in this life, so there was no need to protect her body at this critical moment. After curing the poison, she would return to the Purple Cloud sect to save people and fight Xiejuk. If she couldn't save them, then she would just die with them. This world was too ugly and she had lived long enough. Rongyu Tianlan felt exceptionally uneasy tonight. By the time he and Yunxi returned to Carefree Island, it was already late at night. They naturally discovered that Ji Xinyu had disappeared. Before the girl left, she left him a message. "Thank you for saving me. Goodbye." The date was early in the morning, even the time was included. Rong Yuetian could almost imagine the smug look on the little girl's face when she left. The soul-searching bird circled around the island before landing on Yunxi's shoulder and chirping happily. Yunxi translated the bird language for Rong Yuetianlan. She said that the soul-searching bird felt that the aura left behind by Ji Xinyu here was similar to Ji Yu's aura. There was a high possibility that the two of them were the same person. Of course, if he wanted to confirm it, he still needed to meet the person in person. According to Rongyue Tianlan's original intention, he couldn't wait to go out and search immediately. However, the soul-searching bird was very tired and was not willing to travel through the night to find someone. It simply spread its wings and lay on the ground, refusing to fly no matter what. Yunxi also advised, "Tianlan, Princess Xinyu only left. There won't be any accidents in just one night. Let's rest for the night and go find her tomorrow. I can see that you're also very tired right now. Why don't you rest for a while and have the energy to look for her tomorrow? It won't delay anything." Chapter 3069. Rongyue Tianlan had been running around for the past few days and was extremely exhausted. After hearing Yunxi's words, he looked at the sky again. It was indeed too late. He looked at Yunxi again. Her hair was slightly messy, and her beautiful face was slightly haggard. She looked very sleepy. Under such circumstances he was really embarrassed to ask Yunxi to go out and look for someone. He thought for a while and tried to contact Ji Xingyue with the voice transmission talisman. After a while, the voice transmission talisman was picked up. Ji Xinyue's voice came through. "What's the matter?" Rongyue Tianlan chatted with her for a while and found out that she had returned to the Ziyun sect. Everyone in the Ziyun sect was safe now. She had been too tired from the journey and was now resting. Her voice was thick with sleepiness, and she was obviously very tired. After talking with him for a while, she hung up. Rongyue Tianlan also deliberately sensed the location of the blood-red voice transmission talisman. It was indeed in the Ziyun sect. She wasn't lying, so he was relieved. After thinking for a while, he and Yunxi agreed to set off for the Ziyun sect tomorrow morning. To Rongyue Tianlan, the whereabouts of Xia Huang and Ji Xinyue were unknown. He was afraid that there would be a big battle with them in the future, so he urgently needed to recover to his normal level. Fortunately, he hadn't used up too much of his telekinesis this time. As long as he cultivated in a specific place for a night, he should be able to fully recover. He also had a place that specialized in cultivating his telekinesis. Cultivating in that place was equivalent to cultivating in other places for 3 days. The only downside was that that place was isolated from the rest of the world. The voice transmission talisman couldn't receive any messages from there. Before Rongyue Tianlan entered that place to cultivate in seclusion, he wanted to contact Ji Xinyue again. However, when he thought of her sleepy voice just now, he didn't want to disturb her anymore. Forget it. She had his contact information anyway. If she really encountered danger that she couldn't solve herself, she would definitely use the voice transmission talisman to inform him. Because he couldn't connect to the voice transmission talisman while cultivating in that secret place, Rongyue Tianlan was also afraid that Ji Xinyue wouldn't be able to contact him while he was cultivating. Therefore he gave all his voice transmission talismans to the outside world to Yunxi for safekeeping. He also told her that if there was any bad news from the blue voice transmission talisman, she must knock on the door to the secret place where he cultivated. Yunxi naturally agreed. When Rongyue Tianlan was at the Heavenly Bestowal continent, if he needed to go into seclusion for a short period of time and Yunxi happened to be a guest at his carefree island, he would ask her to help him. In this regard, the two of them had always cooperated very happily. Therefore, when Rongyue Shenlin handed over the voice transmission talisman to Yunxi, he felt very relieved. Speaking of which, it was strange. He had clearly arranged everything properly, but after entering the mystery realm, he felt somewhat uneasy. He kept feeling that something was wrong, but he couldn't pinpoint what was wrong. He didn't have Shinjioli's calculating ability, so he couldn't figure out the reason for his uneasiness. After thinking about it for a moment, he concluded that the main reason for this uneasiness was probably because Ji Xinyu was not by his side, and Huang Xier and Yun Che were watching him from somewhere. He was still worried about her. Forget it, I'd better go find that girl early tomorrow. In this moment of danger, if he didn't keep her by his side to protect her, he wouldn't feel at ease. Right now he had to cultivate to recover. He closed his eyes and forced himself to meditate and cultivate. His original plan was to meditate for 8 hours and leave as soon as the sky brightened. However, because of his uneasiness, he only meditated for 6 hours before waking up. Chapter 3070. As soon as he woke up, he panicked as if something had happened. He couldn't sit still anymore, so he got up and opened the door of the mystic realm. When he walked out, he saw Yunxi pacing back and forth outside the door, looking as if she couldn't decide whether to call him or not. When she saw him come out, Yunxi's eyes lit up and she walked up to him. "Have you fully recovered?" Rongyue Tianlan nodded and didn't beat around the bush. "Is there anything you need from me? Has anyone been looking for me during this time?" Yunxi paused and said, "There was someone looking for you just now," but her voice was too coquettish. She didn't sound like a normal woman. In fact, she was still holding back. Ji Xinyue's voice at the time couldn't be described as coquettish. It was dripping like a coquettish hostess inviting a guest. Indeed, she didn't sound like a proper woman. Yunxi felt that with Rongyue Tianlan's taste, he shouldn't be acquainted with such a woman. However, this woman had a voice transmission talisman with Rongyue Tianlan, so they should know each other. At the time, Ji Xinyue hadn't said why she was looking for Rongyue Tianlan. She had only said that she was looking for His Highness Rongyue in a coquettish voice. Her soft, dripping and even slightly panting voice had successfully given Yunxi goosebumps. After the other party had hung up, she was stunned for a moment. She couldn't guess who the other party was, but she was afraid of delaying Rongyue Tianlan's matter. Therefore, after thinking about it, she contacted the other party again, wanting to ask about the other party's identity. However, the other party couldn't get through no matter what. She wasn't sure if this was an accident, so when she arrived at Rongyue Tianlan's cultivation place, she wasn't sure if she should inform Rongyue Tianlan in time. After all, it was taboo to disturb him when he was cultivating. Just as she was pacing back and forth, Rongyue Tianlan came out by himself. Yunshi told him about the situation just now and took out the voice transmission talisman to show Rongyue Tianlan. Rongyue Tianlan's expression changed. Yunshi, didn't I tell you that this voice transmission talisman is connected to Ji Xinyue? You have to inform me immediately whenever this voice transmission talisman contacts me. His voice couldn't help but carry a touch of anger. Yunshi was stunned. Didn't you say that Miss Ji Xinyue was a straightforward heroine? But that person's words weren't just any ordinary coquettish. How could a female hero speak so softly? Rongyue Tian glanced at her and almost wanted to rub her forehead. After all, this sound-transmitting talisman was connected to a sound-transmitting talisman. If there were no accidents, Ji Xinyue would not lend this sound-transmitting talisman to others, nor would she lose it. Now that this voice transmission talisman had suddenly sent a message in the middle of the night, regardless of whether it was her or not, it meant that there was something wrong on her side. He couldn't be bothered to explain too much to Yunshi. Instead, he immediately used the blue voice transmission talisman to contact the other side. However, there was no more movement from the other side. Something might have really happened to her. He pondered for a moment and immediately contacted Sect Master Ziyun. Sect Master Ziyun was not slow in picking up the call and immediately contacted him. Rongyue Tianlan did not beat around the bush and immediately asked about Ji Xinyu's whereabouts. Sect Master Ziyun paused for a moment. When Xinyu returned last night, it was already quite late. She should still be resting at this moment. Rongyue Shenlin said, I'm looking for her for something urgent. Let her get up and answer my sound-transmitting talisman. Sect Master Ziyun yawned and said, the sun is not even up yet. Your Highness Rongyue, why do you have to look for me at this time? Let's wait until she wakes up in the morning. She's not answering your sound-transmitting talisman right now. This means that she's too tired to answer. It's better not to disturb her at this time. Chapter 3071. There didn't seem to be any flaws in his words. Rongyue Tianlan paused for a moment and suddenly asked casually, Sect leader, where are you now? I just woke up. What's the matter? I've been a little bored recently. How about I find you for a game of chess today? You're looking for Xinyu, aren't you? You're using me as a cover. Haha, you've seen through me. I'll teleport to your place to look for her. She'll probably be up when I arrive. Don't tell her, I want to give her a surprise. The person on the other side paused for a moment. Rongyue, can you change your temperament of acting on whatever you say? Teleporting consumes a lot of telekinesis. Just to see her? Wouldn't this show more sincerity and make her feel more touched? Xinyu isn't such a person. If you use that method, she might think that you don't know what's important and won't accept you. Rongyue Tianlan sighed. You're her master, so you know her best. Forget it, I'll ride the cloud over in a while. I'll probably reach your place in 8 hours. You should prepare to receive me with delicacies. The other side seemed to be relieved. Okay. He then added, there's no need to rush. Xinyu will be staying here for a few days, so you'll be able to see her in these 2 days. The two of them chatted happily as usual and hung up after talking for a while. Yunshi, who had been listening by the side, also heaved a sigh of relief. I told you she'll be fine. She suddenly paused and looked at Rongyue Tianlan. What's wrong with you? You don't look too good. Rongyue Tianlan's handsome face sank the moment he hung up the sound transmission talisman. When he heard Yunshi's question, he only said briefly, something happened over there. Yunshi, I'm going out for a while. Help yourself. After he finished speaking, he was already gone. Yunshi was speechless. She didn't hear anything unusual. Why did Rongyue Tianlan run away in such a hurry? The technique he used was the shrinking earth technique. The shrinking ground technique was even more powerful than the ability to travel 1,000 miles in an instant. It could allow one to travel 1,000 miles in an instant. This place was originally 10,000 miles away from Ziyun's sect, but if Yu Tianlan used this kind of technique, she would be able to reach it in less than an hour. Of course, it also consumed a lot of psychokinesis. It seemed like he was really nervous about Ji Xinyu. He also had someone he liked. I'm the only one left. Rongyue Tianlan had only talked to Grandmaster Ziyun for a short while, but she had already found 2 suspicious points. Firstly, when Sect Master Ziyun was talking to him, Rong Yuishanlin could faintly hear the sound of wind blowing through the forest. In other words, Sect Master Ziyun was outside at that time. But as soon as he got up, a person who woke up early should be full of energy, but Sect Master Ziyun's voice carried a trace of exhaustion, as if he had not slept the entire night. Secondly, Grandmaster Ziyun was actually an impatient person and did not care about others. Most of the time he was idle and bored. At that time, when Rongyue Tianlan wanted to play chess with him, he did not refuse and often urged him to go quickly. He had never thought that he would exhaust his psyche power. However, this time he had been thinking of ways to avoid letting him go early. Of course, the voice transmission that Yunshi received was even stranger. Rongyue Tianlan had clearly used that sound transmission talisman to talk to Ji Xinyu last night. At that time she had said that she was going to rest, so the sound transmission talisman could not have been lost. Then what was the strange female voice that Yunshi received? Something had happened. Chapter 3072. He was afraid that something had really happened to Ji Xinyu. He tried to contact Ji Xinyu a few more times while he was on his way, but there was no response. Rong Yuishanlin made up his mind and activated the blood-red sound transmission talisman. Although the blood-red sound transmission talisman had a powerful positioning function, it had a shortcoming. It was one way. Rong Yuishanlin could only use it to contact her, but Ji Xinyu could not use it to contact him. It also had a very special function. Once he gave this sound transmission talisman to someone, it would stay with that person forever and no one could take it away. Even if someone took it away, it would return automatically, unless that person discovered its existence in time and threw it away. Otherwise, once this sound transmission talisman stayed with her for 10 days, even she would not be able to lose it. Unless she was really dead, with this thing on Ji Xinyu, Rong Yuishanlin could easily locate her when he wanted to find her. This time, after Rong Yuishanlin activated the sound transmission talisman, it was not bad. Someone finally picked it up. Who is it? The voice sounded like it was soaked in water, soft as silk, sweet as honey, as if someone was drunk and their tongue was a little big. Rong Yuishanlin's heart sank. Although this voice was very different from Ji Xinyu's original voice, it was indeed her voice. What happened to her? Why did she suddenly make such an ecstatic sound? Rong Yuishanlin was about to say something when another sound came from the sound transmission talisman, as if someone had fallen to the ground with a plop, and someone exclaimed in a low voice, "Ah, miss, what happened to you? Miss, can you still get up? Miss, are you all right?" Those voices were all from young men, although their tones were different. Each of them had a good voice. Some were magnetic, some were cold, and some were pleasant to listen to. "Miss, let me help you up. Miss, your face is so red and your body is so hot. Are you having a fever? Miss, are you here to listen to music or play chess?" Those men asked one after another. Rong Yuishanlin finally understood where Ji Xinyu was now. A brothel? No, it was a small brothel. There was a loud bang in his head, and all the blood rushed to the top of his head. He paused and almost fell from the sky. Actually, he did not need to know the cause and effect. Just by listening to those people, he knew that Ji Xinyu had been drugged. This girl actually went to look for a waiter. "Ji Xinyu, wake up. I can detoxify your poison." Rong Yuishanlin shouted angrily into the sound-transmitting talisman. But on the other side, Ji Xinyu had clearly lost her mind, and was only left with her instincts. She seemed to have directly jumped into someone's arms and her voice trembled violently. Give you money, cure the poison. Give me the antidote." This loft in Azure City had a very elegant name, Zither Loft. Because the city was not big, the business here was not very good. Although the people in the attic were all men, the majority of their customers were still men. In fact, it was prepared for those who were gay. There were very few female customers, or rather, there would only be one or two in a year. Even if one came occasionally, they would come in men's clothing, hiding their heads and tails, afraid that they would be discovered. Moreover, those women were all withered flowers that had been abandoned by their husbands. Their appearances were also ugly, and some of them were even more bold than the men. But today the woman who broke in early in the morning was actually a great beauty. Chapter 3073. The beauty's face was flushed red and her eyes were watery. When she threw herself into the arms of the man who helped her up, the man's bones went soft. The beauty was also rich. When she threw herself into the man's arms, she threw a heavy purse over. Some gold leaves fell out of the purse, shining dazzlingly under the light. Logically speaking, a prostitute here didn't even need a single gold leaf, but now this beauty threw the entire purse to that man. Okay. Miss, actually you don't need so much money. The man hugging her was still very professional. Besides, for such a beauty, even if it was free they would be happy. After all, they had been in the brothel for a long time and had some knowledge. Looking at Ji Xinyu's expression, they knew that she had been drugged. They didn't know which immoral bastard had drugged such a beautiful girl, but he had benefited from it. The man half-hugged the beauty and walked towards his room. Don't be afraid, miss, this little one will save you and make you comfortable. The other men in the building were all green with envy. To be able to go to Mount Wu with such a beautiful woman and even get money, this kind of good thing was hard to find even with a lantern. There were still people who noticed the red light flashing on the beauty's waist, and couldn't help but ask, "What's that flashing on her waist?" The man half-hugging the beauty looked down and was a bit puzzled. Just as he was about to reach out to take it, a sudden change happened. A dazzling blue light suddenly flashed in front of his eyes. Before he could react, he suddenly felt the weight in his arms lighten, and a strong force directly sent him flying. Bang! He crashed into a table and his back was in pain, making him dizzy. When he finally got up, he found that the beauty had disappeared, and only his colleagues were standing there in a daze. Where was that girl? Everyone looked at each other, no one saw how the girl disappeared. If it wasn't for the bag of gold leaves lying there, everyone would have thought that it was a dream. What's that smell? Someone whispered. This fragrance smells good. After a while, those few people stood in the hall looking confused. What happened? Why are we standing in the hall so early in the morning? I don't know. Hey, there's a money bag here. So many golden leaves. Probably a guest accidentally dropped it here. Alright, everyone go back to sleep. It's fine now. In just a short moment, they had already forgotten that the beauty had barged in to look for a man. They yawned and went back to their rooms to sleep. Hot, so hot. Ji Xinyu was completely under the control of the drug. Her last memory was that she had received a message from the red sound transmission talisman while she was breaking into the building. However, she was already unconscious at that time, and after she picked up the call in a daze, she couldn't remember anything. She only vaguely remembered that she desperately threw herself into a man's arms, and even tore his clothes. In a trance, she seemed to have been hugged by someone else, and she smelled the faint fragrance of cold plum blossoms. The fragrance made her feel irritable and aggrieved. She subconsciously pushed the other party away. Let go of me. I don't want you. That embrace held her tightly, and then her ear was suddenly bitten by someone. Chapter 3074. Ouch. She cried out softly, regaining a bit of her consciousness. Her eyes were misty, but at this moment she was trying her best to focus. In a trance, she saw a handsome face that could bring calamity to a country, and heard the man's angry voice. Ji Xinyu, you actually dared to look for a waiter. This voice was somewhat familiar. Ji Xinyu felt that even if this person was gritting his teeth, his voice was still better than any man's. But at the same time, her heart ached as if someone had thrown her into sour water, soaking her heart until it wrinkled. That sour feeling rushed to her nose and she couldn't help but push him again. I don't want you. I don't want you. If you don't want me, who do you want? That man hugged her even tighter and even stuffed something into her mouth, forcing her to swallow. When you wake up, I'll settle this with you. Settle this? Settle what? Ji Xinyu's heart ached and swelled. That inexplicable grievance was even more overwhelming. She sniffled and like a child, tears began to fall. You're still crying? Alright, don't cry, don't be afraid, I'll detoxify you, I won't let you suffer anymore. Be good, don't cry. At first, that voice was flustered and exasperated, but later, it became somewhat helpless and began to coax her again, and even lowered its head to kiss the tears on her cheeks. This time Ji Xinyu's tears flowed even more fiercely. She cried like a tearful doll in his arms. The person hugging her was naturally Rong Yu Tianlan. When he heard that she had run to the attic, he almost went crazy. Fortunately, his blood-red sound transmission talisman had a powerful positioning function, allowing him to easily find her location. When he hurried over and saw a greasy-haired man hugging her and walking upstairs, he exploded with anger. After taking Ji Xinyu back, he directly sent that man flying. If not for the fact that he had always been a kind deity, and knew that this was not the fault of the people in the attic, he would have killed him. He even had the thought to flick his sleeves and tear down this broken building. Before he left, he poisoned this building, a poison that could make people forget everything that had just happened, so that the men there would no longer remember that Ji Xinyu had run in to look for a waiter. The woman in his arms was as hot as a small stove, clinging to him tightly. She was actually in a very sorry state. Her hair was messy and her clothes were half wet and half dry. She looked like she had been wronged and tears were streaming down her face. Because she was too hot, the tears evaporated when they reached her face. Looking at her crying like this, Rongyue Tianlan's heart, which was as hard as stone, seemed to have been ruthlessly pinched by someone. The great anger also disappeared without a trace. She couldn't help but lower her head to kiss away the tears at the corner of her eyes and coax her, "Don't cry, I'm here." Holding her in his arms, his heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally settled down. No matter what, nothing major had happened to her. She hadn't done anything irreversible. All he had to do was to detoxify her. Once she woke up, he would ask her in detail what had happened and avenge her. The most important thing was to find the person who drugged her and chop him into pieces. What he had forcefully fed her just now was the antidote to all aphrodisiacs. He believed that after the time it took to drink a cup of tea, this poison would be detoxified. Looking at her in his arms, Rongyue Tianlan's heart was filled with a sour feeling. He was once again sure that she was the one he wanted. Whether she was Jiyu or not, he would never let go of her hand again. Chapter 3075. Whether the road ahead was smooth or full of thorns, he would walk hand in hand with her. She could forget about getting rid of him. After a while, Rongyue Tianlan realized that something was wrong. Her little face was still hot, and her exposed skin was almost pink. She had stopped crying, but on her forehead, the tip of her nose and her temples, there were beads of sweat everywhere. She lay on the bed, her little hands desperately tugging at her own clothes. Hot, so hot. Fortunately, the clothes on her body were specially made by the Ziyun sect and were abnormally strong. Her trembling little hands could not tear a seam for a long time. In a panic, she cried again, looking at Rongyue Tianlan with teary eyes. I'm dying of heat. Save me." Ji Xinyue was a little cute like a child and also a little like the little Princess Jiyu who was not in tune with the affairs of the world. Rongyue Tianlan's heart felt like it was hit by something. He was originally holding the restless Ji Xinyue with one hand and checking her pulse with the other. Seeing her like this, his heart was in turmoil and he almost hugged her and kissed her. Maybe she was really Jiyu. Deep down she still had some similarities with her. If he did not break off the engagement and leave, would Ji Xinyue's fate be completely different? Would her personality be the same as Jiyu's? This was hard to say. The environment was very important to a person's growth. The same soul in different environments would eventually form different personalities, or even worlds apart. But no matter what she looked like, Rongyue Tianlan felt that she was unique. Some people said that when the heavens created humans, they deliberately took out a man's rib to create a woman. Only when a man found his own rib could he be complete and feel what he wanted. And Ji Xinyue was Rongyue Tianlan's rib. No matter what her personality was or what she looked like, she was irreplaceable. Once he found her, he did not want to let her go. Rongyue Tianlan was a man. Although he cultivated the path of immortality, when he met the person he really liked, he also had the impulse of a man. He even had erotic dreams with her in the dark night. Every time he saw her, he wanted to hold her in his arms. When he was aroused, he wanted to become one with her. However, he was a perfectionist. Since he had the heart to marry her, he still wanted to save their first time until the day of their wedding, after giving her a grand wedding. It wasn't done in a hurry. But now, looking at her who was like a small stove in his arms, Rongyue Tianlan felt that he couldn't wait any longer. The aphrodisiac in her body was extremely special. It was not something that could be cured with medicine. Rongyue Tianlan had already forcefully fed her several kinds of antidotes to the aphrodisiac, but they were all like clay oxen sinking into the sea. They didn't have any effect at all. She was already in so much pain that she threw herself into his arms and tugged at his clothes. Her burning face was pressed against his face and her body was squeezing desperately into his arms. Her breath seemed to be able to burn the surrounding air. "Save me, save me. I'm in so much pain." Her palms were burning hot and so was her little face. She was in great pain and the blood in her body was boiling. She felt as if she was going to burst into flames. And his body was the only source of coolness, so she desperately squeezed into his embrace. But after all, she did not know what to do next. She fumbled around in his arms, completely at a loss. Chapter 3076. He suppressed his desire that was about to explode and kissed her patiently, caressing her. He had done all the acting he needed to do. The temperature in the room rose rapidly, and their clothes fell to the ground one by one. Finally, there was no longer any thin cloth between the two of them, and their bodies were pressed together. Ji Xinyu was in a daze, feeling as if she was being slowly grilled in a hot oil pan. It was an indescribable feeling. She wanted to urge him to hurry up, but subconsciously she was a little afraid. When he started to try to separate her legs, she subconsciously tightened and murmured a few words. No. Don't. In her daze, she still thought that she was in a small brothel, and that the person who was being intimate with her was a male escort. She didn't know why, but a figure flashed through her chaotic mind. It was the figure that she hid in the deepest part of her heart, and it was also the figure that she tried to get rid of after knowing some things. At such a crucial moment, she suddenly thought of him, and her tears couldn't stop flowing. That person didn't want her anymore. That person was good to her, but he only treated her as a substitute for a certain princess. Now that he knew that she wasn't that princess, he didn't even want her to be a substitute. He had a verbal engagement with another woman, and now he was sleeping with another woman. She was running desperately here and no one could save her. But he was in another place where spring was warm and flowers were blooming, making love with another woman, too tired to get out of bed, and she could only find a male escort that she didn't know to give her first time. Grievance, bitterness, sadness, hopelessness, fear. All kinds of negative emotions were stirring in her chest, and under the influence of the drug she couldn't control these emotions at all. She wanted to cry when she felt wronged, and her tears almost formed a river. It wasn't unusual for a girl to cry on her wedding night, but most of the time, it was when they were really doing it and they were too delicate, so they cried in pain. However, Rongyue Tianlan had never heard of her crying like this before the official start of the competition. At this moment he felt like a rapist. It was impossible to stop at this time. Firstly, he had to use this method to cure her poison, and secondly, he was like an arrow on the bow. If he didn't release it, he would have problems holding it in. She was clearly the one who had been poisoned, but he felt that he had been poisoned as well. It was her poison and there was no cure for it. Seeing her cry like this, Rongyue Tianlan's burning passion cooled down a little. He leaned over her body and wiped away the tears on her face with his fingers. He said in a hoarse voice, "Xinyu, don't be afraid. I'll be gentler. Don't cry." He thought that she was frightened. Ji Xinyu sobbed. "You? How do you know my name? What's your name?" In her daze, she still felt that she should know the name of the man who had taken her virginity, Rong Yuetan. He froze. A waiter? She actually thought that he was a prostitute. Those prostitutes weren't even fit to carry his shoes. No, why should he, a dignified exalted immortal, compare himself to those prostitutes? That wasn't right either. Such an intimate thing could only be done between the two of them, but she actually thought that she was doing it with a male escort. No wonder she was crying like that. She had been wronged. Grievance? If she thought that the person being intimate with her was a male escort, she should have kicked him away. Instead of crying, what was the use of crying? If it was really a male escort doing it with her, he wouldn't stop even if she cried bloody tears. Chapter 3077. Rongyue Tianlan was enraged. His handsome face turned green and white. After a while, he gritted his teeth and pinched her chin. "Young man, come, open your eyes and see who I am." He used a lot of strength, pinching her chin so hard that it hurt. The pain finally pulled her out of her daze. She blinked and tried to focus, finally seeing the man on top of her. That person's face was as if the landscape of the Fanning continent had been carefully painted by the hand of God. He was so handsome that it was soul-stirring. Rongyue Tianlan. He was Rongyue Tianlan. Her eyes suddenly widened, and her red and swollen mouth opened slightly. She said a few words in a hoarse voice. "Rongyue? Exalted deity? Very good." She finally recognized him. Rongyue Tianlan breathed a sigh of relief and hugged her tightly again. He nibbled on her earlobe. "Don't be so stiff. Xinyu, call me Tianlan or husband." It was already bright outside. The light blue sky shone on the bed through the veil and jumped on her pale pink skin. There was sweat on her skin and beads of sweat were sparkling like pearls. At this moment, the two skin was touching each other. The smooth jade-like touch, the pink and translucent appearance, coupled with her exquisite body lines, was enough to make any normal man's blood boil. Rongyue Tianlan's eyes seemed to have flames dancing in them. His breathing was rapid and heavy. He barely suppressed the burning desire and rubbed his body against each other, causing the temperature in the tent to rise even higher. He was waiting for her to call out his name, to call him husband. He thought that at this time, even if Ji Xinyu didn't call him husband, she would still call his name and ask him to continue. However, he didn't expect Ji Xinyu under him to suddenly struggle vigorously. Her face was red and she pushed and shoved him. "No. I don't want you. Rongyue Tianlan. I don't want you. Rongyue Tianlan? He felt like he was hit by a stick. There was a bang in his head. She would rather have a young man than him? Why? In her heart, he was less than a young man. No. In their previous interactions, she had clearly been moved by him. Perhaps it wasn't as passionate as he was, but she was really moved. After all, Rongyue Tian was a Casanova. He could still feel this. Since she had already fallen in love with him, even if he wasn't the number one choice in her heart, his status couldn't possibly be lower than that of an escort, right? There must be a misunderstanding. It was a big misunderstanding. Why don't you want me? Xinyu, come tell me, why don't you want me? Rongyue Tian seemed to be coaxing her, but her voice was extremely strong. Tears flowed out of the corners of Ji Xinyu's eyes again. After being controlled by the drug, she was extremely weak and had no self-control at all. Not only could she not control her tears, she could not control her mouth to complain. You used me as a substitute. I don't want to be a substitute. I don't want to share a husband with others. I don't want to steal someone else's man. Her mind was muddled and she couldn't control herself at all. She blurted out the most grievous thing in the depths of her heart. At the end of her speech, her tears fell down again. In the past, you didn't want me. Now the one you want isn't me. I don't want you to force yourself to cure the poison. I also don't want you to force yourself. What she said was actually a little incoherent. Fortunately, Rongyue Tian was extremely intelligent, so he still understood the general idea. Chapter 3078. Amidst his anger and amusement, his heart ached and swelled. He hugged her in his arms and said word by word, Xinyu, it was my fault for missing you in the past, but now I only have you and only want you. There's no one else and you won't share a husband with anyone else. Also, I didn't force you to detoxify the poison. In fact, he was very willing. If it was someone else, he would have broken down. No, you and Yunxi, you're already very tired, so tired that you didn't pick up my voice transmission talisman. Yunxi picked it up. I didn't want to disturb you, but I had no choice. Rongyue Tianlan was speechless. This was a great injustice. He vaguely understood where the problem was. Who on earth was the one who whispered such words into her ear? There was clearly nothing going on. However, seeing her cry like this, did that mean that she was actually jealous? When this girl was awake, her little mouth was like a clam shell and she always had a strong look on her face. She locked all her thoughts in her heart and wouldn't say anything even if he forced her. Now she was voicing out her dissatisfaction, doubts, and grievances. He rubbed his eyebrows. Xinyu, Yunxi is my friend, just a friend. I don't have any romantic feelings for her, so naturally nothing will happen. I was indeed tired last night, but because I was in a hurry, I was meditating last night and there was no voice transmission talisman in that place, so I gave it to Yunxi and asked her to pick it up. He half leaned on her body and suppressed his lust as he explained to her. No matter how she misunderstood him, as long as she could tell him, he would know what the problem was and be able to explain it to her. At this moment, Rongyue Tianlan was even a little grateful for the effects of this aphrodisiac. Otherwise, this girl would have such a big misunderstanding about him. With her personality, she would have silently distanced herself from him and wouldn't have cried and scolded him, causing him to be misunderstood. He didn't know what exactly she misunderstood. After explaining, he held his breath and looked at her. Would she believe him? She should believe him, right? Because she had just cried, Ji Xinyu's big eyes were misty. She blinked and a teardrop came out. She blinked again and another teardrop came out. Just as Rongyue Tianlan was waiting anxiously, she stretched out her trembling arms and wrapped them around his neck, pressing him towards her. I feel so uncomfortable, save me. Rongyue Tian was speechless. Was she in a daze or sober state? Rongyue Tianlan was slightly panting. He suppressed the lust that was about to explode and forcefully turned her little face over. Looking at her teary eyes, he asked, Xinyu, who am I? Ji Xinyu struggled under his body, her eyes could no longer focus. Only instinct remained, the instinct to become one with the person in front of her. Her little face was flushed red and her breath was hot. Her little mouth muttered a few more words. You save me. I'll give you money, a lot of money, Rongyue Tianlan. Very good, he had become a gigolo again. You want to buy it with money? Did she know that he had kept Yu Tianlan's chastity until now? Did she know that his chastity was also priceless? Motherfucker, even if money couldn't buy him, it couldn't be compared to 10,000 cities. He wouldn't trade the entire Sanskrit continent for it. He gritted his teeth and smiled. You have money? How much are you giving me? Golden leaves, so many golden leaves? Ji Xinyu groped her body in a daze. Chapter 3079. Of course, Ji Xinyu did not touch anything and was still puzzled. Where are my gold leaves? Rongyue Tianlan looked coldly at her touching herself and felt very uncomfortable. He gritted his teeth and laughed again. You can't buy me no matter how many gold leaves you have, change it. Ji Xinyu's face was about to spit fire. She felt that this young man was very expensive. However, she did feel an indescribable sense of comfort from him. Her hands trembled as she rummaged through her storage space again. Her little hand was pressed down by him and she widened her eyes in confusion. His palms were burning hot, and his eyes were as deep as a lake. It was as if he wanted to swallow her whole. He lowered his head and licked her ear, causing her to tremble as if she was having a cold. Then he whispered in her ear, "But for you I can give it to you for free?" Ji Xinyu's reaction was slower than half a beat. She looked at him with her mouth slightly open, but he did not want to talk nonsense with her and kissed her deeply. The passionate kiss almost ignited each other and he did not hold back anymore. His lips, hands, lingered on her body, igniting her everywhere. He was very skilled. Even if she was normal, she would not be able to resist his teasing, let alone when she was under the influence of the aphrodisiac. She gasped for breath. At this time she could only give in to desire. She straightened her body impatiently and said with a trembling voice, "Hurry, hurry up." She was a virgin after all, and he was not an ordinary person. Although he had already done all the steps, she was still in pain and cried out softly. But with his deep kiss, her cries were as weak as a whisper. Only her body was trembling. Rongyue Tianlan was also sweating. He was not in pain, he was enduring it. She treated him as a young man. Although he gritted his teeth in hatred, he could not bear to hurt her at this time. Seeing her trembling violently, he stopped and waited for her to get used to it. "Does it hurt?" she said with tears in her eyes. "It hurts? Get out." She moved her body impatiently. He imprisoned her and kissed her, letting her relax bit by bit until she got used to it. After a hearty, he led her to the top again and again. Rongyue Tianlan looked gentle, elegant, and harmless. He did not seem to care about anything. However, at a time like this, he was still extremely domineering. It could be said that he held the absolute initiative. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes it was slow. Sometimes it was like a storm, causing her to be distracted. Sometimes it was like the spring breeze brushing against a willow, causing her to soften into a ball. After all, she was poisoned, so she was extremely sensitive to everything. Furthermore, he was deliberately pleasing her, so it was easy for her to bloom. And as it bloomed again and again, the poison in Ji Xinyu's body was slowly dispelled, and her muddled mind finally regained its clarity. The room was filled with the scent of pleasure. Mixed with the fragrance of the incense burning in the copper cauldron, it formed a strange smell that filled the room. After the last round of pleasure, both of them were drenched in sweat. At this moment, Ji Xinyu's body was extremely sore and weak. She pushed Rongyue Tianlan away, her fingertips moving slightly as she tried to form a seal, wanting to use the cleansing incantation on herself. But after a few rounds of passion, she was extremely weak, and her hand seals were all jumbled up, unable to achieve the desired effect. Ji Xinyu was still not satisfied and continued to cast the spell. Rongyue Tianlan watched quietly for a moment, and his heart trembled as he held her wrist. "Let me do it." Ji Xinyu thought that he would also use a cleansing incantation, but she did not expect him to use a normal method. Chapter 3080. He took out a snow-white handkerchief from somewhere and wiped her gently. As the soft handkerchief slid across her skin, Ji Xinyu blushed and raised her hand to stop him. "I'll do it myself." Rongyue Tianlan held the hand that she wanted to stop, while the other hand continued to wipe her. A man who was satisfied always had a good temper, so at this moment, the smile in Rongyue Tianlan's eyes was like a spring breeze brushing past. "Xinyu, I like to personally serve you." Ji Xinyu couldn't stop him. She closed her eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Thank you." Rongyue Tianlan's fingers froze and he looked down at her. "Thank me?" He seemed to have thought of something and his beautiful eyes narrowed. "Thank me for using this method to detoxify you? Thank me for sacrificing myself?" His voice was a little hoarse after pleasure, like a feather tickling one's senses. He leaned closer to her and whispered the last sentence in her ear. This sentence was a little poisonous and even frivolous. "Or thank me for my skills, which are much better than those boys." "You." Ji Xinyue's little face was flushed red before another layer of red surged up. She gritted her teeth and glared at him. She didn't know what to feel. When she was awake and saw that he was the one who had done it with her, she couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. But at the same time she thought of the voice transmission talisman. Then she thought about how he had probably just climbed out of Yunxi's bed. She felt an indescribable sense of suffocation. If she had been awake, she might not have let him touch her. She would rather give her first time to a boy than let him take responsibility for it and be entangled between him and Yunxi, but she had woken up too late. What was done could not be undone. They had already had a few rounds of pleasure. The feelings in her heart were indescribable. Her head was buzzing. She took a deep breath and said hoarsely, "Rongyue Tianlan, what do you plan to do?" Rongyue Tianlan already knew what she was feeling uncomfortable about, but he didn't want to expose her mischievously. Who asked her to find a boy? He touched his nose and pretended to be confused. What do you mean? His eyes rippled like water. You want me to take responsibility, don't you? Don't worry, I will take responsibility. Xinyu, you are now mine. I will send someone to Nantian Palace to propose marriage. She knew it. He would take responsibility for this. But she didn't want this kind of responsibility. Ji Xinyu took another breath. Rongyue Tianlan, this matter was an accident. I don't need you to take responsibility. You don't need to force yourself to marry me because of this. What if I say that I won't force you? Rongyue Tian looked at her. Ji Xinyu gritted her teeth. If you don't force me, then I will. I don't want to marry you. She suddenly paused and grabbed his hand. What are you doing? There was a small medicine bottle in Rongyue Tianlan's hand, and there was a green liquid in the medicine bottle. He had just touched a little of that liquid and was about to rub it on a certain part of her body. Her small palm was wet with sweat. Rongyue Tian flipped his wrist and freed his hand from her small hand. He had an innocent look on his face as he said, I'm applying medicine for you. Actually, I was already careful enough, but you were still injured. This medicine is extraordinarily good at healing wounds. Applying it on you will make you feel very comfortable. Chapter 3081. Ji Xinyue's face was so red that it was about to be filled with blood. She held his hand tightly and refused to let go. I'll do it myself. Okay. Rongyue Tianlan handed the bottle to her with a faint smile, then looked at her with bright eyes. You can start now. Let him stay here and watch her smear it on herself? Ji Xinyue wanted to kick him off the bed. But her legs were sore the moment she moved, especially a certain part of her body, which was extremely painful and numb. Her whole body felt like it had lost all its strength. You go out first. Ji Xinyue was almost burning under his direct gaze. Xinyue, we're already in this kind of relationship, why are you still shy? Rongyue Tianlan leaned close to her ear and took the bottle back. Be good and let me apply it for you. I guarantee that you'll recover at the fastest speed. As he spoke, he had already begun to apply the medicine for her. Ji Xinyue couldn't stop him for a moment. She wanted to find a hole to hide in, so she simply closed her eyes and covered her ears. Rongyue Tianlan's hands were light and fast. After applying the ointment, she felt cool, and the painful and sore feeling was finally reduced by half. After Rongyue Tianlan cleaned her up, he started to clean himself up. A cleaning spell was done. He could still use this cleaning spell on both of them. Even Ji Xinyue was as clean as if she had just taken a shower. Then he took her into his arms and the two of them lay under the blanket together. He wrapped one arm around her and locked her in the crook of his arm, while his other hand began to wander around her body, again. Ji Xinyue was shocked and hurriedly held his hand. No. Rongyue Tianlan obediently let her hold his hand and raised his eyebrows at her. No. My massage technique is very good. It can quickly relieve your fatigue and restore you to normal. Are you sure you don't need me to massage you? Ji Xinyue was speechless. So he wanted to massage her. After all, she had been poisoned by an extremely strong aphrodisiac. Although the aphrodisiac was detoxified, its effects were still there. She had just woken up and was facing him who didn't play by the rules, so her mind was still in a mess. She wasn't really awake and her reactions were slow. Rongyue Tian looked at her pair of round eyes and felt an indescribable joy. She looked at her with a smile and said, How is it? Do you want me to massage you? Ji Xinyu bit her lips. Her lips had already been bitten by the flames of lust burning in her body, and now that she bit down on the original wound, she immediately felt a burning pain. Idiot, although I like you here, this is your own meat. Why are you biting it so hard? Rongyue Tianlan placed a finger on her red lips and applied a special ointment on her lips. He spoke with a smile and his every move was filled with overbearing love and care. While Ji Xinyu was in a daze, he had already finished applying the ointment. Once again he hugged her in satisfaction and used his other hand to massage her. Xinyu, look, aren't I omnipotent? There will be many benefits if you marry me. A husband like me is hard to find. Husband? These two words seemed to stab Ji Xinyu. Her heart felt as if it was drowning, and she abruptly took a step back, avoiding his hand. She blurted out, "You're quite skilled at this. Do you say this to every woman you've had sex with?" Chapter 3082. Rongyue Tianlan's fingertips paused. As he continued to massage her, he slowly said, "I'm good at this because I'm a doctor. As for the other women, you're the only one I've ever had sex with. I'm a picky eater. I'm only interested in women I really like and want to marry." Liar. You and Yunxi, you just rushed over from Yunxi's place. I know you've spent a lot of time with her, so it's normal for you to have deep feelings for her. I don't want to come between the two of you. Rongyue Tianlan, I know men can have 3 wives and 4 concubines. You can marry her or me, but I can't accept it. So you want to quit? You don't want me even if you have this relationship with me? You're giving up on me so easily? Ji Xinyu opened her mouth slightly. Why did he sound like a pitiful woman who was about to be abandoned? Rongyue Tianlan gently caressed her mouth. You want to eat me so you don't want to admit it? Xinyu, you can't be so irresponsible. Actually, a man's chastity is very precious. Ji Xinyu clenched her fists. But you lost your chastity long ago. How is it long ago? It wasn't there just now, so I threw it on you. Rongyue Tianlan said righteously. This person was too thick-skinned. He had just crawled out of Yunxi's bed. Rongyue Tianlan, don't think I don't know. You can't hide this from me. You and Yunxi have already... Rongyue Tianlan suddenly leaned close to her and pressed his forehead against hers. Are you jealous? His breath was too close to hers. Ji Xinyu panicked and felt sour. She pushed him away. I just don't want to share a husband with someone else. Coincidentally, Yunxi is also a proud lady. She also doesn't want to share a husband with someone else. And I don't want to marry 2 women. It's good to only love one woman. It's tiring to have more. Then you mean? Ji Xinyu suddenly seemed to understand something. So you abandoned her and chose me? Rongyue Tianlan facepalmed. He almost wanted to spank her. This girl was sometimes so smart that it was amazing. Sometimes she was so dull that it made him want to punish her. Ji Xinyu, Yunxi is just a friend of mine. She and I are just friends. We don't have any romantic feelings for each other. That's why I didn't abandon her. If I had feelings for her in that way, I would never have come to pester you. Do you really think I'm a playboy? Ji Xinyu, I see that your misunderstanding of me is really deep. It's a pity that I've kept my chastity for thousands of years. Now that I've failed, I've lost my chastity to you. You're still trying to push me away and misunderstand me so much. What's even worse is that when you were poisoned, the first person you looked for wasn't me but a waiter. Don't tell me that in your eyes, I can't even compare to a small prostitute? When she said the last sentence, the resentment in Rongyue Tianlan's eyes reached its peak, and she stared at her accusingly. Ji Xinyu stared at him, dumbstruck, her head buzzing, unable to react for a moment. Rongyue Tian took the opportunity to kiss her little mouth. Are you silly? Ji Xinyu had just woken up, so her mind wasn't very clear to begin with. With the bomb thrown out by him, she was completely stunned. Fake. Were his interactions with Yunxi fake? But why would such a personal voice transmission talisman be with Yunxi in the middle of the night? Yunxi also said that he was resting. Rongyue Tianlan saw her expression and knew what she was worried about. He tapped his forehead and decided not to tease her anymore. If he continued teasing her, his wife might become anxious. Chapter 3083. Without waiting for her to ask, he started to explain. There was a moment of silence in the room. Rongyue Tianlan's explanation was only a few words, but it stirred up a storm in Ji Xinyue's heart. She was stunned for a moment. So that's what happened. So Yunxi was just his friend. It seemed that Xie and Huang Luqing had added something to the images they showed her. Wait, Xie Huang Luqing. Ji Xinyue suddenly jumped up. Oh no. She jumped out of Rongyue Tianlan's arms, which gave Rongyue Tianlan a fright. What's wrong? Ji Xinyue's palms were covered in cold sweat. She quickly looked outside. The thick curtains in the room blocked most of the sunlight, and only a faint white light penetrated in. Obviously it was daybreak. What time was it now? Had the great array already started? There was no hourglass in the room. She was anxious and raised her hand to pull the curtains, wanting to open them to see the sun outside. Rong Yuetian reacted quickly and grabbed her hand. Idiot, what's going on? Are you still thinking about letting the people outside feast their eyes on you? Ji Xinyue. She looked down and felt like her whole body was burning. She was indeed naked. Rong Yuetianlan looked at her with a smile and added fearlessly, although you look very good like this, I'm selfish. I still want to keep my wife's body to myself. Ji Xinyue didn't know whether to cover her body or his eyes. If it was in the past, she would have kicked this sharp-tongued guy out of the window. However, she didn't have time to bicker with him now. She hurriedly looked for her clothes. Rong Yuetianlan saw her flustered appearance and his heart skipped a beat. He raised his hand and took out a dress from his storage space and placed it in front of her. Wear this. It was a lake-colored dress, elegant and luxurious. It even seemed to be sparkling in her hands, and it felt exceptionally good to the touch. Ji Xinyue liked this color and style, but she didn't have time to appreciate it carefully. She didn't even have time to look at the composition of the fabric. She raised her hand and put the dress on, then pulled open the curtains. The sun outside had already risen above the horizon. Based on the height of the sun, Ji Xinyu quickly estimated the time, around 5:15. She heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was not too late. The array had not started yet. In fact, the array was easy to break. As long as the people in the array knew the true function of the array, they would naturally rebel. Even if he couldn't defeat Huang Luqing and the others, he would no longer listen to them and be a chess piece in the array. The only obstacle was the enchantment of the Purple Cloud sect. As long as that enchantment was broken, everything would be easy. At that time she couldn't do anything about that barrier, but now there was Rong Yuishanlan, an expert in breaking barriers, here. She immediately turned to look at Rong Yue Tianlan. Your Highness Rong Yue, you're best at breaking barriers, right? Do me a favor. The sun was warm. Rong Yue Tian sat on the bed and meditated with his eyes closed. There was a faint blue light flickering around his body. He sat in the blue light like a Buddha. Ji Xinyu sat uneasily in front of the table, staring at him as she ate a fruit on the table. She had just spoken very quickly and concisely about what had happened in the Purple Cloud sect last night. Chapter 3084. The more Rong Yue Tianlan listened, the tighter his brows became. After listening to her, he was silent for a moment, then took out 2 pastries for her to eat to replenish her strength. He took 2 pills in succession and then said, "Don't be afraid, I'll take care of everything. I guarantee that your friends will be fine. There's still time, give me an hour to recover." After saying that, he immediately sat cross-legged on the bed and entered a meditative state. Ji Xinyue didn't know what kind of medicine he had swallowed, but she could guess that it was probably a medicine that could quickly restore psychokinesis. She didn't know if there were any side effects. She didn't know what kind of fruit Rong Yue Tianlan gave her was. Not only did it taste excellent, it also had the effect of quickly restoring physical strength. Her body was originally sore and weak, but after eating the fruit, all her fatigue was swept away. She didn't dare to disturb him, so she sat by his side and looked at him. Her heart was strangely calm. He was here for her. It was a simple sentence, but it made her heart feel warm and even her nose felt a little sour. What happened last night was no less than the collapse of heaven and earth to her. Her most trusted master was a member of the demonic sect, and even plotted against her. Her most beloved junior brother turned out to be the reincarnation of the demonic master. The lives of those senior and junior brothers were in danger, but she was drugged with an aphrodisiac and there was no way out. At that moment she felt that she was abandoned by the whole world and fell into hell, unable to climb out. But he came not only to cure her of the poison, but also to help her save her senior and junior brothers. It felt good to have someone to rely on. Ji Xinyue took a light breath, closed her eyes slightly, and silently adjusted her breath. Although she was burning with anxiety, she couldn't be anxious at this time. Rong Yue Tianlan must have used the telekinesis teleportation technique in order to come and save her in time. He had to recover before he could go to Ziyun sect to save people. Ji Xinyue was actually very rational, so she waited for him silently and definitely wouldn't rush him. Rong Yue Tianlan had a strong sense of time, and after an hour he opened his eyes. Ji Xinyue immediately jumped up. "How is it? Can we go now?" Rong Yue Tianlan looked at her big bright eyes. She looked a little nervous. She was obviously very anxious, but she was forcing herself to be calm. He raised his hand and brushed the hair on her forehead. Are you waiting here or are you coming with me? Ji Xinyu immediately said, Of course we'll go together. Rong Yuetian didn't beat around the bush and held her hand. All right, then we'll go together. On the way we'll discuss the plan. Master. Just as Ji Xinyu opened the door, the moon god sword rushed in, almost stabbing into Ji Xinyu's body. Ji Xinyu was furious when she saw it and slapped it away. Since you ran away, why did you come back? This fellow had run away when she was being plotted against. Now that she was out of danger, it came back. Master, I went to get reinforcements, I didn't run. The divine sword's voice rang in Ji Xinyu's mind. Ji Xinyu, where did you go to get reinforcements? The tip of the moon god sword immediately pointed at Rong Yuetian. Go to him. Ji Xinyu, the moon god sword felt wronged. This divine sword rushed to his place as fast as possible, but in the end I couldn't break his barrier. This divine sword tried its best to knock him out, but instead of knocking him out, I knocked out his friend. I forced myself to draw words in front of her to communicate with her, and only then did I know that he had come out to look for you. Then I rushed to Ziyun's sect without stopping, and saw that something had happened to Ziyun's sect. Chapter 3085. Ji Xinyu's heart sank. What happened there? The residents of the disciples of the Purple Cloud sect and the guest department are completely covered by the barrier. I searched all the places where I could find you, but I couldn't find you. Unfortunately, I couldn't enter the place with the barrier. In a hurry, I attacked the barrier, and as a result, I attracted 2 people to chase me. Ji Xinyu heaved a sigh of relief. This was the same situation as what she had encountered last night, which meant that there were no other changes. Ji Xinyu also told Rong Yuetian what the moon god sword had said, but Rong Yuetian frowned slightly. He asked the moon god sword a few more questions in succession. He asked in detail, even asking about the moves the moon god sword had used to attack the barrier. After asking everything, his brows were tightly knitted. Ji Xinyu kept looking at his expression, and seeing him like this, her heart sank again. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Rong Yuetian looked at her pale little face, took a light breath and said, That barrier, I'm afraid there's a big problem. What big problem? Ji Xinyu's heart also rose. Rong Yuetian didn't want to scare her, but he also didn't want her to be caught off guard when the barrier had a problem. When that happened, the impact on her would be even greater. He pondered for a moment and said, That barrier is most likely the blood ghost swallowing barrier. This barrier is an ancient taboo barrier, set up by combining a soul of the person who set up the barrier with thousands of resentful spirits. The living beings enveloped by this barrier will lose their minds and completely obey the orders of the person who set up the barrier. Ji Xinyu's heart rose higher and higher. Then, what if the barrier is broken? Will they be back to normal? Rong Yuetian shook his head slightly. There must be an antidote. Then, do you have the antidote? Rong Yuetian shook his head slightly. This barrier has disappeared for 10,000 years. I've only heard of it but have never seen it officially. Naturally, I can't make an antidote. He had heard of this array from Xinjiuli. Xinjiuli had encountered this array in the past, so he knew the specific situation of this array. He had always been interested in array formations. Hence, when Xinjiuli casually mentioned it while they were playing chess, he asked for more details. Xinjiuli didn't hide anything from him in this aspect, and concisely explained the characteristics and dangers of this array. Of course, Xinjiuli wasn't one to lose out. While explaining, he took the opportunity to give him a few rare fruits to eat. At that time, Rong Yuetian had a good memory when he heard Ji Xinyu's words. When he had heard the moon god sword's words, he was already a little bit. When he heard the moon god swords and compared all the characteristics, he was. Then is it useless to break that barrier? Ji Xinyu's voice trembled slightly. Since last night she had been wallowing in despair, hopelessness. No matter how good her mentality was, she couldn't bear it. Rong Yuetian held her hand and said, Don't be afraid. It's not completely useless. It's not that this poison can't be cured, but it will take some effort. I have to find someone. Yes, don't worry, as long as that person comes, it will be easy to cure this poison. Now, our first task is to prevent them from activating that array. We have to protect their lives first. Ji Xinyu also knew that it was useless to be anxious at this time. She suppressed the panic in her heart. Then what should we do? Kill Xiejuk before the array is activated. First, he had to eliminate the source. Chapter 3086. Kill Xiejuk before the formation starts. Destroy him first. Rangi Yuishinlan's voice was filled with killing intent. Ji Xinyue paused for a moment and blurted out, "Do we only kill his physical body or destroy his soul?" Rangi Yuishinlan glanced at her. "If we want to eliminate all future troubles, it's better to completely destroy his soul to prevent him from making a comeback. Then, after killing him, can we separate his main soul?" Xiejuk's main soul was Xie Fenglu. That child had really been devoted to her, and in the end he had been devoured by Xiejuk. Rangi Yuishinlan tightened her grip on the bamboo flute. After saying this, Ji Xinyue regretted it. At such a critical moment, it was really too much to ask Rangi Yuishinlan to separate the main soul. She knew that Xiejuk's martial arts had not fully recovered, and his cultivation was about the same as hers. It would not be too difficult for Rangi Yuishinlan to kill him. However, Huang Luqing was a formidable opponent and her master. These two people were the guardian elders of the demon world tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, it was already difficult for tens of thousands of people to defeat them. Now that tens of thousands of years had passed, it was hard to imagine how profound their martial arts were. However, they usually hid their true martial arts to deceive others. If Rangi Yuishinlan wanted to kill Xiejuk, Huang Luqing and Sect Master Ziyun would definitely stop her. Although Rangi Yuishinlan was an immortal, it would be extremely difficult for her to deal with these two people. However, time was very tight and she could not even find other reinforcements. It was too late to call for reinforcements at the last minute. What should she do? What should she do? She originally thought that as long as Rangi Yuishinlan broke the barrier and informed the people inside, there would be room for negotiation. Now it seemed that it was not an ordinary problem. Not only would they not be able to save him, but they would also lose Rangi Yuishinlan and her lives. At this time, even if she and Rangi Yuishinlan used all their strength, they might not succeed. It would be too much for her to ask for anything else. Therefore, Ji Xinyu regretted her words the moment she said them. She hurriedly added, "You don't have to do it on purpose. It's better to break this formation and not let their scheme succeed." Rong Yuishinlan pulled her into his arms and rested his chin on the top of her head. He closed his eyes slightly and said, "Well, okay, let's focus on the overall situation." He paused for a moment as if he didn't have the heart to say it, but he had no choice but to say it. "Xinyu, among your senior brothers, which one of them cultivates earth elemental techniques?" "It's fifth senior brother." "What's wrong?" "Xinyu, the five elements formation restored by the Devil Master must have all five elements, and the leader of the five elements must cultivate to the level of a divine monarch. Without one, the effectiveness of the formation would be greatly reduced, especially for earth-type spells. Earth was the core, and without it, the formation would not be of much use. According to what I know, among your senior brothers and junior nephews, only your senior brother has cultivated to the level of a divine lord. If we really have no other choice, we will have to kill your fifth senior brother to protect the others. Do you agree?" Ji Xinyu's hands and feet were cold and she stared at him with wide eyes. It was too cruel for her to make such a decision, but this was a cruel matter in the first place. Sometimes, it was necessary to sacrifice the rook to save the king. At the crucial moment, she still had her own opinions and was decisive. She nodded slightly and said, "Okay." This word seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Chapter 3087. Rongyue Tianlan held her hand and said, "Don't be afraid. Even if you want to kill your fifth senior brother, you will only kill his physical body, and his soul will not be harmed. I have a friend who knows how to summon souls and gather bodies. After this, I will find my friend and ask him to revive your fifth senior brother. At most, he will sleep for a year. After a year, he will be your good senior brother again. How about that?" This time, Ji Xinyu's expression finally looked better. She let out a long sigh of relief and nodded vigorously. "Okay." Her tone was much lighter. Rongyue Tianlan could not help but laugh. He kissed her sparkling eyes and said, "Then it's settled?" He then told Ji Xinyu about his plan. This plan was a little risky, but it was also the most likely way to succeed. Ji Xinyu nodded. "There's no time to lose. Let's split up." According to the plan they had discussed on the way, Rongyue Tianlan appeared first and went to find Sect Master Ziyun as an ignorant person. Because Sect Master Ziyun was busy preparing for the opening of the Great Array, his first reaction when he heard his disciple's report was to not meet him. He asked his disciple to pass on a message that it was not convenient for Ziyun's sect at the moment and asked Rongyue Tianlan to come again another day. Rongyue Tianlan naturally would not choose another day to go. He used the excuse of wanting to see Ji Xinyu and directly barged into Ziyun's sect. At such a critical moment, Sect Master Ziyun did not want to cause more trouble. Ji Xinyu had already escaped. If he told Rongyue Tianlan that Ji Xinyu had already left, Rongyue Tianlan might not believe him and search around Ziyun's sect. It would be very easy for him to discover the enchantment in his disciples' courtyard. At that time, it would be another trouble. Therefore, Sect Master Ziyun wanted to minimize the trouble. He made up his mind to transform into Ji Xinyu to meet Rongyue Tianlan. His plan was very good. If he could fool Rongyue Tianlan, he would do so. If that did not work, he could still catch him off guard and plot against him. Sect Master Ziyun's scheming mind was deep, but the person he met was Rongyue Shenlin, who had the same idea. Sect Master Ziyun's martial arts were indeed strong, even stronger than Rongyue Tianlan's. However, Rongyue Tianlan knew many tricks. More importantly, Rongyue Tianlan was good at poison and setting up arrays. Grandmaster Ziyun was inadvertently poisoned by Rongyue Tian, and then he was thrown into a maze by Rongyue Tian. He couldn't get out for a while. Of course, the commotion caused by Rongyue Tianlan also alarmed Huang Luqing. Huang Luqing had always regarded Rongyue Tianlan as a formidable opponent. When she saw his arrival, she naturally waited for him. Before Rongyue Tianlan came near the enchantment, he was intercepted by her. The two of them had a disagreement and fought. This time, Huang Luqing naturally didn't hold back anymore, and she used everything she'd learned in her lifetime. He was Sharkman who had been cultivating for tens of thousands of years. Before Rongyue Tian was born, he had already cultivated to the level of a mighty immortal. Now, his kung fu was close to that of a great deity. He was only one thunder tribulation away from that. Originally, Rongyue Tian wasn't his opponent, but after all, he had separated a part of his soul last night and condensed more than 10,000 malicious ghosts to set up the array. His power had been greatly reduced, and he only had half of his previous power left. In addition, Rongyue Tian was full of tricks in the fight. All kinds of kung fu that he had never seen or heard of emerged endlessly. At the beginning of the fight, Huang Luqing was slightly at a disadvantage. However, he wasn't in a hurry, because once the Devil Lord's recovery array was officially activated, the enchantment supported by his soul would no longer need to be used. At that time, his soul would return and his kung fu would increase greatly. Rongyue Tian wouldn't be his opponent. He could also take the opportunity to get rid of this person. It could be considered as getting rid of a formidable opponent for the Devil Lord in advance. Chapter 3088. The two of them fought fiercely. Huang Luqing was afraid that the shockwaves from their fight would affect the barrier, so he tried to lure Rongyue Tianlan elsewhere, away from the barrier. The barrier was extremely sturdy and could not be opened without the power of an immortal. The only person Huang Luqing was worried about was Rongyue Tianlan. As long as he lured Rongyue Tianlan away, even if the others came, they would be helpless against the barrier. Moreover, Xiejuk was still near the barrier. Once the array in the barrier was set up, the barrier would automatically disappear. Xiejuk would enter and use a special method to absorb the flesh and blood of the people in the array, completely returning to normal. Before this, if someone tried to break into the array, Xiejuk would be able to deal with them. Huang Luqing's plan was very good, but he forgot about Ji Xinyu, or perhaps he thought that he had already dealt with Ji Xinyu. Not only could the aphrodisiac poison he gave Ji Xinyu be removed by intercourse with a man, but if an ordinary man helped her remove it, her martial arts would be crippled, and she would become a complete cripple. Naturally, she would not be able to do anything. He was worried last night, so he secretly followed Ji Xinyu for a short period of time. Seeing that she went around looking for medical treatment to no avail and directly broke into the small attic, he was relieved and returned. At that time, his heart was completely at ease. He did not believe that the Devil Master would still be obsessed with a woman who had no martial arts and had been defiled by a boy. Of course, even if the Devil Master did not let go of Ji Xinyu because of Xie Fengliu's soul, she would no longer pose any threat to Xiejuk. His plan could be said to be flawless, but he forgot a sentence. The heavenly Tao is unpredictable, and he also forgot a sentence. The plan is not as fast as the changes. Ji Xinyu, who he thought had become a cripple, had quietly appeared in the Purple Cloud sect while he and Rongyue Tianlan were fighting in full swing. As soon as she appeared, she immediately tried to break the barrier. However, her skills were obviously not enough. The Azura saber in her hand danced like the wind, but she did not manage to cut open the barrier at all. The more she could not cut it open, the more anxious she became. Her palm was bleeding from the recoil of the saber hilt. She did not know if it was because of pain or anxiety, but tears streamed down her face. Don't waste your energy. You can't open it. Even if you do, the people inside won't listen to you. Xiejuk finally couldn't help but walk out from the shadows. Let them go. Ji Xinyue's eyes were bloodshot as she pointed the tip of her blade at Xie. In just one night she had become extremely haggard. Her face was pale, her eyes were red and swollen, and even her lips had turned pale. Xie's eyes darkened. He paused for a moment before saying, Xinyu, the demon world has been planning for so long. It's impossible for them to stop. Little Nine, they are also your senior brothers. Back then they treated you pretty well. Back then, how harmonious were our senior brothers. Do you have the heart to use their lives in exchange for your own power? You clearly could have cultivated for a few hundred years. Ji Xinyu still didn't want to give up on psychological warfare. Xie let out a short laugh as he looked at Ji Xinyue with his ink-black eyes. Then he shook his head slightly. I won't be able to cultivate back. He sighed softly. If I had revived normally, I would have been able to cultivate for a few thousand years and return to my previous state. However, my soul back then was too fragmented. It was originally a dead end where I could not return at all. In the end, Huang Luqing used a special spell to forcefully absorb my soul back together. Therefore, I could only use this method to recover after my revival. Otherwise, I would never be able to recover. Chapter 3089. Actually, even if you don't recover, your cultivation is not low. Why must you recover? Ji Xinyue gripped the hilt of her saber tightly. You don't understand. Xie smiled bitterly and shook his head. He was the Devil Master, and the news of his resurrection would spread very quickly. Once it spread, the people of the celestial world would come in waves to eliminate the demons. If he continued to be like this, he would only be waiting for death. Even if the people of the celestial world did not come to find trouble with him, he was not willing to be mediocre. He was even more unwilling to be protected by Sect Master Ziyun and Huang Liuqing's wings. He was the Devil Master of the Devil World. What he wanted was to dominate a region, not hide somewhere and be a mediocre person. He had Xie Fengliu's memories and even his obsession, but his personality and nature were completely different from Xie Fengliu's, and his ambitions were also different. Xinyue, as long as I recover all my martial arts, I will be the overlord of this world. At that time, whether it is your father or the other 3 emperors, they will all have to bow down to me. If you follow me, you will be second only to one person and above millions of people. Those who want to do great things should not be bothered by trifles. Your senior brothers sacrificed themselves for this seat is also their blessing. If you follow me obediently, I can promise you to keep their souls and let them be this seat's ghost servants. If you continue to be stubborn, not only will I devour their flesh and blood, but I will also devour their souls. I will not let your father off either. He narrowed his eyes and moved closer to Ji Xinyue, then smiled. Xinyue, their future is in your hands. What are you going to do? Ji Xinyue's face flushed red. She took a step back and suddenly sneered. Xie, you gave me such a powerful aphrodisiac last night. Aren't you curious how I removed it? Xie was stunned and his expression changed. Aphrodisiac? Why would I need an aphrodisiac if I wanted to do you? He seemed to have suddenly understood something and his fingers clenched. Huang Luqing. This bastard. He looked at Ji Xinyue from top to bottom, and his expression became unsightly. His aphrodisiac can only be removed by intercourse between a man and a woman. He didn't know how many women he had had in his life, so it was easy for him to distinguish between virgins and virgins. He had been speaking to Ji Xinyue in an amiable manner just now, trying to convince her, but now his face was ashen, as if he was a hot-blooded man who realized he had been cuckolded, and was extremely angry. His fingers slowly clenched by his side. You lost your virginity? Who did you lose your virginity to? When he was angry, his aura was unusually strong, and the surrounding air seemed to be frozen by his low pressure. Ji Xinyue sneered, it's none of your business. Xie narrowed his eyes and slowly said, Xinyue, are you afraid of death? Ji Xinyue also clenched the Azura blade in her hand and looked at him warily. What do you want to do? Xinyue, that soul of mine likes you very much. For you, he didn't hesitate to give up his life. You should keep yourself pure for him. Xie's voice was as cold as ice. So? Ji Xinyue raised her eyebrows. So you should die. Xie slowly pulled out his sword, and his ink-black eyes seemed to be surging with ice. Xinyue, give up on your dirty body. I will create another one for you. Ji Xinyue raised her eyebrows. Create another one? Yes, Xinyue. I like you, so I naturally can't bear to see you truly die. Chapter 3090. Yes, Xinyu, I like you, so I naturally can't bear to see you truly die. I will let your soul reincarnate into a good body. Don't worry, it will only take a few hundred years for you to grow into a beautiful woman again. Even your appearance won't change. At that time, it will be the same if you marry me. I will wait for you. Ji Xinyu was speechless. She raised her head and laughed. Ha, you're really wishful thinking. Xiejuk, you keep saying that you like me, but I was tricked into this state by your subordinates. Instead of taking revenge for me, you want to kill me? Is this how you love someone? Xiejuk was speechless. I will naturally punish him to fight for justice for you, but Xinyu, I can't tolerate a woman being unchaste, so Ji Xinyu laughed out loud this time. I'm unchaste? Xiejuk, tell me yourself, how innocent are you? As far as I know, you had many concubines tens of thousands of years ago, right? Men and women are different. Women should be faithful to one person, but it's normal for men to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. He saw the slightly mocking smile on Ji Xinyu's lips and felt uncomfortable. He added, as compensation after I marry you in the future, I can make you my empress. No one can surpass you. Ji Xinyu's answer was to stab him. Dream on. Her stab was filled with anger and its power was astonishing. Xiejuk's handsome face darkened. That's not up to you. The two of them were locked in a fight here. After fighting for about half a cup of tea's time, Ji Xinyu's martial arts were clearly inferior to Xiejuk's, probably because she was exhausted last night. She gradually showed signs of losing. Perhaps she felt that there was no benefit in continuing the fight, so she found a flaw and faked a stab, rushing into the sky above the barrier. Xiejuk already had the intention to kill her, so how could he let her go? Moreover, she didn't leave the vicinity of the barrier, so he naturally chased after her. The two of them ran like lightning above the barrier. Ji Xinyu was chased by him to the point that she did not know where to go. She ran around in the air above the barrier, going east, west, south, and north. She did not know where she learned a set of movement techniques, but she would often escape from Xiejuk's sword in the nick of time. Xiejuk was already extremely angry because of Ji Xinyu's loss of chastity. Now that she had escaped again and again, he was even angrier. He had a fiery temper to begin with, and after a few incidents like this, his anger was about to burst his chest. He steeled his heart and raised his speed to the maximum. The palm sword turned into a black beam of light and pierced towards Ji Xinyu's back. At this moment, Ji Xinyu had already run to the center of the barrier. Hearing the fierce wind behind her, she suddenly stopped and turned around. Pooh! With a bang, blood splattered everywhere. Xiejuk's sword had pierced through her chest and came out of her back. Her body suddenly swayed, and with a hoarse cry, she fell down. Although Xiejuk was determined to kill her, after seeing her get hit by the sword, his heart suddenly ached. He leaped up and caught her in the air. He hugged her, who was covered in blood, in his arms. Xinyu. Just now he had stabbed out with his sword in extreme anger. This sword contained the demonic energy of the Devil Master. If it stabbed an ordinary immortal, it would instantly cause their soul to dissipate. Even if it stabbed a divine lord like Ji Xinyu, even if their soul did not dissipate, their physical body would definitely die, and even their soul would be severely injured. Chapter 3091. He only wanted to kill her physical body, but he did not want to hurt her soul. Therefore, the moment the sword hit her, his face turned pale. His sword had clearly hit her vital point, and blood gushed out from her wound. When Xiejuk held her in his arms, his robe was stained with blood. When the blood touched his hand, he felt as if he was burned. He looked down at her. Her face was terrifyingly pale. Her eyelashes were slightly closed, and her lips opened a few times as if she wanted to say something. However, she was already close to death and she could not speak. Xiejuk's fingers trembled slightly. He subconsciously used his hand to cover the wound on her chest and whispered into her ear, "Xinyu, what did you say?" At the same time, he used his psychic power to check how injured her soul was. As soon as he did so, his expression changed drastically. Her soul was so weak that it was almost undetectable. While he was in a daze, there was a sudden gust of wind behind him. He was distracted. By the time he realized that something was wrong and wanted to dodge, it was already too late. "Young master, be careful." A loud shout accompanied by an even stronger gust of wind rushed over. Clang. Bang. 3 strange sounds rang out one after another, making it impossible for anyone to react. Clang. The sound of metal clashing rang out. Bang. Someone was sent flying by the huge force of the collision. As for the sound, it was because the sneak attack from behind was too fast and too close. Although the flying sword was deflected, it was only deflected. The sword that was originally heading for Xiejuk's back directly pierced his ribs. Xiejuk's body stiffened. He subconsciously turned around to see what was going on. Ji Xinyue, who was in his arms, suddenly exploded. She raised her hand and stabbed at his heart. At this moment, a series of shocking changes happened. Even someone as smart as Xiejuk could not react in time. The knife was about to stab him through the heart. He hurriedly threw her out. His movements could not be said to be slow, but the distance this time was too close. Although he had thrown her out, the knife still stabbed into his chest, almost piercing through his heart. Xiejuk staggered 2 steps back. Blood flowed out of his chest and back, forming 2 lines of blood that dripped down. He was in extreme pain. He lifted his hand and pressed on the acupoint to stop the bleeding. "Young master." Someone rushed up to support him. Xiejuk's face was pale. He did not even look at Sect Master Ziyun, who was supporting him. His ink-black eyes looked at the barrier. A woman was standing on top of the barrier. Her lake-like dress fluttered in the wind, and she held the moon god sword in her hand. At her feet was a puppet that looked exactly like her. The puppet was wearing the clothes that Ji Xinyue had worn when she escaped from the Purple Cloud sect. At this moment, the clothes were covered in blood. He had been tricked. Xiejuk clenched his fists tightly. Who would have thought that this lass also knew the puppet clone technique? And he actually didn't notice it just now. Ji Xinyue also wrung her hands. He was so close. She was so close to succeeding. This was the way to defeat the enemy that Rongyue Tianlan had thought of on the way. Rongyue Tianlan first taught Ji Xinyue the puppet clone technique. In order to make it realistic, he even took out Ji Xinyue's soul and sealed it on the puppet as a backup. After arriving at the Purple Cloud sect, he would try to lure the 2 powerful enemies away. Then, Ji Xinyue would release the puppet with the Azura saber to cut the barrier and lure Xiejuk out of the shadows. Because the puppet had Ji Xinyue's soul, and the puppet was holding the Azura saber. Chapter 3092. Because Ji Xinyue's soul was in the puppet, and the puppet was holding the Azura saber, the conversation was done by Ji Xinyue controlling the puppet in the dark. It was no different from a conversation between her and Xiejuk. Xiejuk was indeed tricked. According to Rongyue Tianlan's calculations, Xiejuk had to be angered to chase after her without caring about anything else. Xiejuk's blood rushed to his head and he naturally could not calm down, so he did not hold back when he attacked. If he killed Ji Xinyue, his mind would definitely be shaken and he would be distracted for a moment. And the real Ji Xinyue, who had been hiding in the dark, would take advantage of this moment to take out the moon god sword and launch a sneak attack. Coupled with the puppet's final attack, this plan could be said to be perfect and foolproof. Xiejuk should have died without a doubt. But she did not expect that someone would suddenly appear. Sect Master Ziyun actually broke through the maze at this time and saved Xiejuk. Sect Master Ziyun was too anxious to save Ji Xinyue. Not only did he deflect Ji Xinyue's sword, he even sent her flying with a palm strike. He used a lot of strength in this palm strike. Even though Ji Xinyue had meticulously set up a protective barrier around her body in advance, after being hit by his palm, she could not bear it. The blood in her chest surged and the smell of blood rushed to her throat. She could not suppress it for a moment and spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked up at Sect Master Ziyun, seemingly crying and laughing at the same time. "Master, you finally attacked me." Sect Master Ziyun had always doted on her. In Ji Xinyue's heart, her master was closer to her than any of her relatives. When she was learning, she was extremely smart and could understand everything with just a hint. No matter what she learned, she could infer many things from one example. In addition, she was a girl, so Sect Master Ziyun had never poked her with a finger after so many years of learning. At most, she would be punished to stand. And now, he had sent her flying with a palm strike and it was done with a large amount of mental power. If her skills were slightly weaker, she was afraid that this palm strike would have taken her life. Sect Master Ziyun's face was slightly pale, and his voice was cold. "Ji Xinyue, you are too insensible. If you still treat me as your master, get lost now." Ji Xinyue closed her eyes slightly. Actually, at this point there was no point in saying anything more. Her master would not stop now. Although Xiejuk had suffered a blow from her saber and sword, she had not given him a fatal blow. He was only seriously injured. With his terrifying recovery speed as a devil master, he would be able to recover more than half of his injuries in less than 4 hours. At that time he could still enter the life-sucking formation to recover. Since the first plan had failed, they could only proceed with the second plan. Ji Xinyue gripped the moon god sword in her hand tightly and took a deep breath. Master, I'm sorry, I have to save someone. Suddenly, he chanted an incantation and stabbed his sword at the barrier beneath his feet. Sect Master Ziyun raised his hand and made a hand seal as if he was about to do something. Xiejuk grabbed his wrist and said coldly, "Let her stab." Other than him, the Devil Master, and Huang Luqing, no one else could open this barrier with brute force. Even if this girl concentrated all her power into this sword, she wouldn't be able to damage this barrier in the slightest. It was just a waste of effort. Capture her alive. He ordered Sect Master Ziyun. Didn't she insist on going against him? Then he would make her despair step by step, and then capture her alive and let her watch as he sucked all the people in the barrier. He originally couldn't bear to let her see this. He even wanted to take her life and send her to reincarnate so that they could continue their relationship in the next life. But now he changed his mind. Chapter 3093. This girl deserved to be taught a lesson. He wanted her to understand the true price of angering him. Crack. With a sound like glass shattering, Ji Xinyu's sword pierced through the barrier beneath her feet, causing countless cracks to appear on it like it was made of glass. The barrier was about to break. She had only pierced it once and the barrier was about to break. How was this possible? Sect Master Ziyun's expression changed. He raised his hand and waved his palm at Ji Xinyu. Stop. Perhaps it was because the previous palm strike had made Ji Xinyu vomit blood, but Sect Master Ziyun's palm strike was meant to stop her from breaking the barrier again. He did not want to kill her, so he did not use his full strength. After all, he was close to the level of a high god. If Ji Xinyu did not dodge this palm strike in time, it would be extremely fatal. He had taught Ji Xinyu this move before. Not only did she know how to use it, she also knew how to dodge. Sect Master Ziyun thought that she would dodge no matter what, but he did not expect that she had no intention of dodging at all. The palm sword once again pierced towards the barrier that was about to break like lightning. Crack. Crash. Bang. There were 3 consecutive sounds. The first 2 were the sound of the barrier finally breaking. The unbreakable barrier was broken. The next sound was when Sect Master Ziyun's palm struck Ji Xinyu, sending her flying like a paper hawk. She fell to the ground along with the broken barrier. Everything was as Rongyue Tianlan had expected. Because of the poison barrier, the people under the barrier were completely controlled. When Ji Xinyu fell, she fell into the crowd of people walking in formation. She even smashed into a disciple, causing that disciple to tumble down. That disciple got up dizzily. He did not even look at Ji Xinyu, who had fallen to the ground and did not get up for a while. As for the others, they did not have any reaction to Ji Xinyu falling from the sky and continued to run. Everyone formed hand seals and the array was about to take shape. Ji Xinyu was usually very close to these senior brothers and juniors. If it was in the past, when they saw her suddenly appear, they would have already run over to ask about her well-being. But now no one cared about her. Even 7th senior brother, who had always been on good terms with her, ignored her when he ran past her. Ji Xinyu forced herself to jump up from the ground. In the end, she did not give up. The moment she landed, she used her psyche force to shout out the Devil Lord's scheme, telling these people to quickly stop setting up the formation. But no one listened to her. It's useless. Xiejuk landed, his voice carried a gloating sneer. Ji Xinyu, they have already become puppets. They do not have their own consciousness. Even if you break this barrier, you will not be able to stop anything. They are dead for sure. Ji Xinyu had continuously ruined his plans, which made him extremely angry. He wanted nothing more than to teach her a lesson from head to toe, to make her regret, to make her feel sad. Ji Xinyu had suffered 2 consecutive blows from Sect Master Ziyun, and was already heavily injured. She could barely stand and her face was deathly pale as she staggered backwards. Xiejuk wanted to grab her personally. His figure flashed and he wanted to rush forward, but Sect Master Ziyun stopped him. Young Master, this array formation will be set up in 15 minutes. Young Master needs to recuperate first. I will deal with her. Xiejuk paused. He naturally understood the importance of the matter. He took a deep breath and coldly ordered, "Don't show any mercy, kill her. Just leave her a soul." Sect Master Ziyun's fingers tightened slightly. "Young Master, actually you can spare her life, after all, she is a romantic." Chapter 3094. I am not Xie Fenglu. I can't be as tender and protective as him. This woman's body is already dirty, there's no point in keeping her. Sect Master Ziyun was stunned. This time, his meeting with Ji Xinyu was too hasty, and under such circumstances, he had yet to see Ji Xinyu's face clearly. Hearing Xiejuk's words, his heart sank, and his gaze fell on Ji Xinyu. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell that Ji Xinyu was no longer a virgin. What's going on? He couldn't help but ask. Wasn't she fine when she escaped yesterday? Ji Xinyu swallowed the blood that was about to rush up her throat and continued to retreat step by step. She sneered, "You should ask this demon master." Sect Master Ziyun's gaze immediately turned to Xiajuk. Xiajuk said coldly, "It was Huang Luqing who did it. He must have poisoned her with the Heaven's Edge charm poison before he left last night." Sect Master Ziyun's face changed. Heaven's Edge charming poison? He obviously knew how strong this poison was. His face was ashen. Huang Luqing, that bastard. Xinyu had no choice but to lose her virginity. If you want to blame someone, blame Huang Luqing. Xiajuk closed his eyes. In the future, I will naturally punish Huang Luqing. However, Ji Xinyu's body has already been tainted. If she was chaste, she should have calmly committed suicide instead of living in this world. Sect Master Ziyun, Xiajuk continued, I've said before that only her body is dirty. Her soul is fine. He paused. However, she hasn't known what's good for her recently. After we extract her soul, we can remove her soul and erase all her memories of this life before sending her to reincarnate. After this incident, even if she didn't lose her virginity with her personality, she probably wouldn't reconcile with him again. It would be better to start over. Xiajuk had always been simple and brutal when it came to matters of the heart. His personality was like Chow Chow's. Only he was allowed to betray others and no one was allowed to betray him. He could have 3 wives and 4 concubines or even 100 wives and 1,000 concubines, but he did not allow any of his women to be unfaithful. If there was even the slightest sign of unfaithfulness, he would mercilessly kill them. There was no lack of wrongful killings. Not only did he kill them, but he also dispersed their souls so that he would not be upset when he saw the reincarnated woman in the future. Ji Xinyu had failed him time and time again, and had even been tainted by other men. If it were any other woman who had done the same to him, he would have long since executed them with 1,000 cuts, and even their souls would have been smashed into pieces. He felt that treating Ji Xinyu this way was already an extraordinarily lenient act. It was only because he loved her very much that he did this. After all, Sect Master Ziyun had stayed by his side for many years and naturally understood his temperament. Hearing such an order, although his heart sank, he was not surprised. Once the Demon Lord command was issued, it could never be changed. Although Grandmaster Ziyun was reluctant to part with his disciple, he had no other choice. He looked at Ji Xinyu, his eyes filled with struggle and helplessness. Xinyu, you asked for this. Ji Xinyu seemed to have realized that something was wrong. She staggered backwards as fast as she could while pleading with Sect Master Ziyun. What she said was nothing more than what had happened between master and disciple in the past. By the time she finished speaking, her eyes were already filled with tears. In Sect Master Ziyun's heart, Ji Xinyu was like his own daughter, the person closest to him. Now that he had to kill her with his own hands, he could not bring himself to do it. When he heard what Ji Xinyu had said, his heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. Although he held the treasured sword in his hand, he could not bear to be ruthless. He struck out a few palms at Ji Xinyu, but Ji Xinyu used a strange movement technique to dodge them all. Chapter 3095. The two of them, one chasing and one fleeing, shuttled through the crowd of people in the array. Ji Xinyu seemed to be in a panic, running around in the crowd. Xiajuk knew that her martial arts were far inferior to the awakened Sect Master Ziyun, and she was also severely injured, so he naturally wasn't worried that Ji Xinyu would cause any trouble. He paused for a moment, then sat down cross-legged, wanting to recover. After all, the array was about to start. Left Protector, hurry up. Xiajuk urged. He didn't want Ji Xinyu to still be in the array when he activated it. This was because this formation not only sucked the flesh and blood of humans, but also their souls. When he told Ji Xinyu that he could keep these people's souls, it was just a lie to trick her. He was actually still wary of the Moon God sword in Ji Xinyu's hand. After all, Ji Xinyu had used this sword to break through the barrier just now, shocking everyone. He subconsciously felt that it was because of that sword, so he still warned Sect Master Ziyun, be careful of her sword. Sect Master Ziyun was actually very puzzled. He had not used his full strength when he first attacked, but after being dodged by Ji Xinyu's special movement technique, He became a little anxious. Who did this girl learn this set of body movements from? How strange. The time to activate the array was about to arrive. Once the array was activated, no one would be able to escape. If he didn't kill her now, he was afraid that both of them would die here. He steeled his heart and was about to use his killer move when he suddenly heard a scream from the center of the array. He was shocked and subconsciously turned around, only to see his fifth disciple, who had originally set up the array, lying in a pool of blood with Jishinua's Azura saber stabbed into his back. All 5. He turned pale with fright and widened his eyes in disbelief. How was this possible? This Azura saber could actually move on its own. Damn it, he only paid attention to that moon god sword. He didn't expect that this saber would suddenly have such a strong intelligence. Because the disciples who were setting up the array had their minds controlled, they could only react instinctively and move according to the formation that they had rehearsed beforehand. Half of their minds were still controlled by Sect Master Ziyun and Huang Luqing. Normally, if they were attacked under the control of these people could still counterattack and dodge, and their martial arts were even better than usual. His reaction would also be very fast. But now Huang Luqing was entangled by Rongyue Tianlan, and Sect Master Ziyun was chasing after Ji Xinyue. Furthermore, Sect Master Ziyun had never thought that Ji Xinyue would try to assassinate her fifth senior brother, so she was completely unprepared for this. That saber came and went like a ghost. Without any warning, it suddenly appeared and stabbed that disciple with the force of a thunderbolt. The fifth disciple lay motionless on the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. He couldn't care less about Ji Xinyue. With a leap, he pounced towards the fifth disciple. He still had a sliver of hope in his heart. Although his fifth disciple had been stabbed in the heart, he was still a monarch god. As long as his head wasn't chopped off and he was saved in time, he wouldn't be killed so easily. Ji Xinyue also felt a sharp pain in her heart the moment her fifth senior brother fell to the ground. Fifth senior brother doted on her and even saved her life once. The two of them drank together. When she was depressed, fifth senior brother would come to comfort her. But now, for the sake of the big picture, she had no choice but to kill him with her own hands. She knew that after her fifth senior brother was stabbed, he would lose his life. Because her Azura saber and moon god sword had been dealt with by Rongyue Tianlan beforehand. Chapter 3096. Her Azura saber and moon god sword had been dealt with by Rongyue Tianlan beforehand. Whether it was a saber or a sword, as long as it pierced a person's heart, no matter if they were a divine lord or an immortal, they would all die. They couldn't be saved. The two plans that Rongyue Tianlan and she had made could be said to be extremely meticulous. If one plan failed, they would immediately use the second plan. Moreover, these two plans complemented each other, making it impossible to guard against. For example, breaking this barrier was not only due to the moon god sword's contribution, it also included some special techniques. Since Rongyue Tianlan had heard about this array from Shinjuli, he had naturally heard the great god talk about the solution to this array. Moreover, the great god's solution was also very different. Even Huang Luqing, who set up the array, did not know this solution. This solution was simple but not simple. It required 3 conditions. First, the blood of the person who broke the array and the blood of the demon king, who needed to use this array to suck human flesh and blood, dripped onto the barrier. Second, there was a meteoric iron sword that could break all solid fortresses. Third, the person who broke the array had to be stronger than a divine lord and was a woman. And Ji Xinyue had met all 3 conditions. Her blood had long been taken out and stored in a puppet. Although she had failed to assassinate Xiejuk, she had still successfully stabbed him, causing his blood and her blood to drip onto the barrier. Everything that happened after that was logical. Even the smart Xiejuk and Sect Master Ziyun had fallen for her trick. Now she had finally succeeded. After killing fifth senior brother, this array could not be set up in a short period of time. However, personally ending her senior brother's life still made her heart ache. However, she could not care less about being sad at this time. Just as Sect Master Ziyun leaped towards fifth senior brother, she took the opportunity to raise her hand, and the moon god sword in her palm shot towards Xiejuk, who had just stood up in shock. This demon was the culprit. He was the cause of all this tragedy. Even if she had to risk her life, she had to get rid of him to prevent future trouble. She used all her psychic power in this throw. The sword split into 6 in the air, and a cold light flashed, sealing off all of Xiejuk's escape routes. Xiejuk could not avoid it, and his expression changed drastically. Young master, be careful. There were two exclamations, one long and one short. A figure pounced on Xie like lightning and pushed him to the ground. At the same time, a swift and fierce palm wind slammed towards Ji Xinyu with an earth-shattering force. The one who pounced on Xie and saved him was Huang Luqing, and the one who attacked Ji Xinyu with his palm wind was Sect Master Zi Yun. He did not hold back in this palm strike, but he had gathered almost all of his power. Ji Xinyu had used up all of her strength in that throw just now. Hearing the fierce wind behind her, she wanted to teleport, but because of the lack of strength, she couldn't do so. Just as the palm was about to land on her back, a blue light flashed from the side. Before she could react, the blue light carried her and jumped sideways. Ji Xinyu heard a bang. With a bang, the person holding her swayed slightly and flew out with her along with the force of the palm wind. Ji Xinyu panted as she stood on a small platform. She grabbed the sleeves of the person beside her. "How are you?" The person who had saved her and blocked the palm strike for her was Rongyue Tianlan. He had been hit by Sect Master Zi Yun's palm wind. Although it did not hit any vital points, it still caused the blood in his chest to churn a few times. The moment he landed on the ground with Ji Xinyu in his arms, he detected the injuries on her body. Her injuries were not light. Her heart meridian was shaken, and the blood in her body was in chaos. Chapter 3097. But the little girl's eyes were wide open. She ignored her own injuries and focused all her attention on him. She probably saw that his face was a little pale, and her fingers were still holding his wrist as if she wanted to check his pulse. She was really worried about him. Rongyue Tianlan's heart was filled with warmth. He tightened his arms around her waist and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." Ji Xinyu heard that his voice was more energetic and relaxed. She subconsciously said, "We did it, my fifth senior brother." Rongyue Tianlan knew that she was conflicted at the moment. He kissed her forehead and said, "Xinyu is great. Don't worry, I will be responsible for reviving your fifth senior brother in the future." Ji Xinyu was sad and happy. She opened her mouth to say something, but Rongyue Tianlan stuffed a pill into her mouth and said, "Good girl, eat it." Ji Xinyu naturally swallowed it. Before the cool air rose in her stomach, Rongyue Tianlan had already picked her up and said, "Let's go." Whether it was Sect Master Zi Yun or Huang Luqing, they were both people who had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. They were close to the high god level and should be about the same level as Xinjiuli. Of course, their martial arts were not as good as Xinjiuli's, but it was more than enough to deal with Rongyue Tianlan and Divine Lord Ji Xinyu who had just ascended. In a one-on-one fight, Rongyue Tianlan relied on the mysterious martial arts and array techniques he had learned from other places to exchange a few hundred moves with Huang Luqing. After a few hundred moves, he would be defeated, not to mention he had recently used forbidden techniques frequently. For example, he had teleported from Carefree Island to Azure City to save people. For example, he had added his spiritual force to the Azura Blade and Moon God Sword. For example, he had used a portion of his High God blood in the puppet. For example, he had set up a large array to trap Sect Master Zi Yun. Then he had fought with Huang Luqing in the air for a few hundred moves. He could have delayed Huang Luqing for a while, but the sound of Ji Xinyu breaking the enchantment had alarmed Huang Luqing. This was probably out of Huang Liuqing's expectations. Or maybe he had suddenly realized something and went berserk. He tried to break free from Rongyue Tianlan's entanglement and return to the array. But Rongyue Tianlan tried his best to buy time for Ji Xinyu. Until Rongyue Tianlan sensed that there seemed to be movement of Sect Master Zi Yun in the enchantment below, he was immediately shocked. Fearing that Ji Xinyu would suffer a great loss at the hands of Sect Master Zi Yun, he immediately turned around and left. He and Huang Luqing arrived almost at the same time. The moment he arrived, he saw Ji Xinyu brandishing her treasured sword to assassinate Xie, while Sect Master Zi Yun mercilessly struck Ji Xinyu with his palm in order to save her. Huang Luqing and he had pounced on different targets, each saving the people they cared about the most. Rongyue Tianlan's back was still swept by Sect Master Zi Yun. If it was in the past, it would be fine. However, under his continuous consumption of energy, he could not hold on any longer. Now that the crucial fifth disciple was dead, Rongyue Tianlan naturally did not want to continue fighting in a situation where they were outnumbered. He carried Ji Xinyu and was about to run. He made a hand seal with his fingers and was about to use the teleportation technique to escape. Unexpectedly, as soon as he flew up, a large blood-red cover came down from the sky, trapping everyone inside. Rongyue Tianlan's expression changed. Blood Demon Shield. He suddenly raised his head and saw Huang Luqing standing there, smiling coldly at them. Do you think you can destroy my array like this? Since that disciple was killed by you, then you can take his place. His voice was cold as if he was an emissary from hell. Flipping to the next page there was a surprise. Haha, it was a surprise for Mumu. Little friends, do you see the voting button? Reach out your little hand and click on it. You can vote all your monthly votes and recommendation votes. It was the last day of the month, the monthly votes would be invalid if they did not vote. Boo-hoo, the monthly votes were the lifeblood of the author now. Mumu tearfully begged for everyone's support. There will be an update in the evening. Chapter 3098. The Blood Demon Shield was a taboo technique of the superior mermaid race. It was connected to the soul of the person who set up the shield. They were bound together for good or ill. Once this shield was set up, unless the person who set up the shield wanted to release someone, there was no way they could escape. Of course, the person who set up the shield also couldn't leave. If he wanted to leave, he would have to break the shield first. However, he could send his companions out of the shield. In other words, Huang Luqing could send Xiejuk and Sect Master Purple Cloud out of the shield, but he couldn't. Unless he didn't want to restrain Rongyu Yishenlin and Ji Shenyue. After this shield was set up, those who were covered by it wouldn't be able to escape no matter what. They could only desperately fight with the person who set up the shield and kill them in order to escape. Rongyu Yishenlin was indeed someone who dealt with array formations and magic shields all year round. As soon as he saw the shape and color of the shield, he recognized it. His heart sank to the bottom of the earth. In terms of true martial arts, he was inferior to Huang Luqing, much less Sect Master Purple Cloud, who was on the same level as Huang Luqing. He feared that this would be a battle of life and death. Although Ji Shenyue didn't recognize what this shield was, she could tell that it was unusual from Rongyu Yishenlin's frozen body. She held his hand. What's wrong? Rongyu Yishenlin didn't speak. He gently patted her hand and stuffed a medicine bottle into her palm. Then he pulled her behind him and said to her with a sound transmission, "You are heavily injured. If there is a chance, immediately leave and use a teleportation technique to escape to Carefree Island. There is an extremely powerful enchantment there that outsiders cannot easily break in. You can heal there and wait for reinforcements." Ji Shenyue's heart sank. "What about you?" I will also look for a chance to escape and call for reinforcements. But the distance to call for reinforcements is far too long. It will take at least 2 or 3 months. You can wait on Carefree Island. It won't be too late to leave after you've completely recovered." Ji Shenyue looked into his eyes. "Really? Of course. You also know that I came from another continent and made a friend there. As long as that person comes, these people will not be his match. Your senior apprentice brother's revival will also depend on him. Don't worry." Rongyu Tianlan reassured her. When Rongyu Tianlan heard from Ji Shenyue that Sect Master Ziyun and Huang Luqing were from the ancient devil clan, he knew that there would be a tough battle in the future. Therefore, he had informed Yunxi and asked her to quickly return to the Tianxi continent to get reinforcements. However, the journey was too long. It would take at least 2 months for Yunxi to travel back and forth. Rongyu Tianlan's original plan was that after he and Ji Shenyue broke through the Demon Lord's flesh-sucking array formation, they would rush back to Carefree Island and rely on the enchantment there to deal with Huang Luqing and the others. It wouldn't be a problem for them to last a month or 2. But now, distant water could not quench the present thirst. On the other side, Sect Master Ziyun was also injured. In order to save Xiejuk, he had been stabbed by Ji Shenyue's Moon God Sword, right in the middle of his left arm. Although it was not fatal, blood still dyed half of his sleeve red. The wound caused by the Moon God Sword wasn't easy to heal. Even though he pointed at it several times, he still wasn't able to stop the bleeding. Thus, he simply wrapped a cloth around it. This stupid method actually worked. At this time, Xiejuk was so angry that he was stunned. His eyes were fixed on Rongyu Tianlan and Ji Shenyue's hands. He suddenly realized something and shouted out, "Her virginity was taken by you." Chapter 3099. Rongyu Tianlan glanced at him with eyes as cold as ice. She couldn't be bothered to answer his idiotic question. Xiejuk's gaze was as sharp as a knife. He wanted nothing more than to cut their hands apart. He suddenly sneered, "Ji Shenyue, do you think he's your backer? Do you think you'll be safe with him by your side? Let me tell you this blood demon shield." He explained the characteristics of the blood demon shield and finally said, "You won't be able to escape. You'll only die if you stay by his side. I can give you 2 choices now. Do you want to hear them? Ji Xinyue's heart sank when she heard the characteristics of the blood demon shield. She already understood the general situation. She had her own plans, but she still asked, "What are the two choices?" Xiejuk thought that she was finally moved. His heart moved slightly, and he revealed a smug expression. "First, cripple all your cultivation and follow me out. I will spare your life on account of Xie Fenglu and even keep you by my side to serve me. I'll let you be my concubine." Ji Xinyue raised her eyebrows. "So good? You don't despise me for being a withered woman? Isn't it time to kill me?" Xiejuk clenched his fists in his sleeves and said coldly, "So what if I despise you? In the end, Xie Fenglu loves you. He can't bear to kill you. It makes me feel uncomfortable. So as long as you're obedient, I can keep you by my side. However, you can't be my wife, you can only be my concubine." Ji Xinyue was expressionless. "What's the second choice?" "The second choice is very simple. I'll let you die here, then extract your soul and imprison it by my side. In order to punish you for being disobedient, I won't send you to reincarnate for the time being. Instead, you'll be my ghost emissary. As a ghost emissary, you won't have your own thoughts. You'll only listen to my orders and kill people. I'll make you a ghost emissary for 100 years. When I'm happy, I'll send you to reincarnate." Ji Xinyue couldn't help but laugh. Her smile was both mocking and mocking. "What if I don't choose either?" "That's not up to you." Xiejuk sneered. Ji Xinyue raised the moon god sword in her hand and sneered, "My life is mine. Even the heavens can't control me. What's more, you're just an unawakened devil master. Without these two protectors, you are nothing. What right do you have to decide my life and death?" Her words were vicious enough. It could be said that she had poked Xiejuk's sore spot. His face was ashen as he looked at Rong Yuishinlan. "You keep saying that you like her, but you're just going to watch her court death? She doesn't understand the power of this blood demon barrier, but I don't believe that you don't understand it either." Rong Yuishinlan held Ji Xinyue's hand and did not even look at Xiejuk. "I will fight for a third path for her." Although her voice was faint, her tone was firm. Ji Xinyu's heart warmed and she held his hand. "No matter what, I will go through thick and thin with you. If you live, I live. If you die, I die." Her voice was loud and clear and everyone heard her. Rong Yuishinlan didn't say anything. She just held her little hand again. Nothing was said. Their interaction made Xiejuk extremely uncomfortable. He sneered with an ashen face, "What a pair of lovebirds. What a pity, Ji Xinyu, you are deeply in love with him, but he only sees you as a substitute. A substitute for a certain woman. Is it worth it for you to live and die for him like this?" Rong Yuishinlan slightly stiffened and couldn't help but turn to look at Ji Xinyu. "I didn't use you as a substitute. The ending will probably be decided tomorrow or the day after. Sprinkle flowers, sprinkle flowers. There will be no update in the early morning, so everyone doesn't have to wait. Tomorrow's update will start in the afternoon. Today is the night of the monthly votes bloody battle. Those who have monthly votes, don't forget to throw them out. They will be invalid after the early morning." Chapter 3100. Ji Xinyue interrupted him, "You don't have to explain, I believe you." She then turned to look at Xiejuk and said in a slow but powerful voice, "It's worth it. Even if he uses me as a substitute, it's worth it for me to live and die with him now." Xiejuk was speechless. He was furious. He took a step back and instructed Huang Luqing, "You can start now. Just leave her with 2 souls." Huang Luqing paused and asked, "Which 2 souls should I leave for her?" It was as if Ji Xinyue's life was already in his hands. The awareness soul and the remembrance soul. The awareness soul and remembrance soul together could retain a person's memories and feelings and could experience pain. Therefore he wanted to leave her 2 souls by his side so that she would regret the choice she made today day and night. "Okay." Huang Luqing agreed. He also knew that this would be a bloody battle. Although Rong Yuishinlan and Ji Xinyue would definitely lose, they would definitely fight with their lives on the line. At that time, it would be unavoidable for them to be implicated. Therefore Huang Luqing raised his hand and sent Xiejuk out of the blood demon barrier, letting him listen to the good news outside. Ji Xinyue also understood that it was time to fight with their lives on the line. Moreover, she and Rong Yuishinlan would most likely lose, but she and Rong Yuishinlan had already done their best in this matter. As long as they could advance and retreat together with their loved ones, even if they died together, it would not be so terrible. "Tunlan, if we really reach the point of no return, just scatter my soul." Ji Xinyue sent a voice transmission to Rong Yuishinlan. Rangi Yuishinlin held her hand and did not agree to her request. Instead he asked, "Do you believe me?" "I believe you," Ji Xinhua answered without hesitation. Rangi Yuishinlin was gratified. He hugged her waist and touched her earlobe with his lips. "If you believe me, you have to listen to me. When you go out later, kill Xiejuk and eliminate all future troubles." Ji Xinhua froze. "Then you?" "I'm fine. I'll just be a little injured. Remember, don't worry about me when you go out. Get rid of Xiejuk first." As he spoke, he grabbed her hand and quickly drew a seal in her palm. Strangely enough, when he drew the talisman, blood would automatically drip from his fingertips. This blood quickly seeped into her palm, but nothing could be seen on the surface of her skin. Because they were talking in a secret language, the people on the other side did not know what they were talking about. They only saw that they looked very close together, as if a young couple was cheering each other up in a desperate situation. When Rongyue Tianlan was drawing the talisman in Ji Xinyue's hand, it was the time when Huang Luqing sent Xiejuk out of the array. Sect Master Zi Yun saw Rongyue Tianlan's little trick, but he was conflicted because he wanted to see with his own eyes and even kill his favorite disciple with his own hands. For a moment he was a little absent-minded. Even when he saw Rongyue Tianlan's actions, he didn't pay attention. Besides, he knew the power of this formation very well. Rongyu and Tianlan could not escape no matter what. Now, no matter what he did, it was just a last-ditch struggle. Let him and Ji Xinyu be intimate for a while longer. Now that things had developed to this point, this was the only thing he could do for Ji Xinyu. He wanted her to say goodbye to her lover before she died. Huang Luqing was actually looking forward to this battle. He had not met an opponent for many, many years. After Xiejuk died, he had traveled all over the Sanskrit continent in order to find a way to resurrect him. He had walked alone in this world for tens of thousands of years, but he had never met a decent opponent. Chapter 3101. Men were all hot-blooded and he was no exception. Even if he hid his identity in martial arts, he still wanted to spar with an expert. However, although these experts were quite famous, their skin was too fragile. Even a rare exalted immortal from 10,000 years ago was nothing but a piece of trash in his eyes. After exchanging a few blows with him, he was sent on his way. Because he had to hide his tracks, the experts who had fought with him only had one ending: death. Not only did they die, but their souls were also dispersed. Only in this way could his secret identity not be exposed. Over the years, countless top experts had died at his hands. In the eyes of the world, these experts had disappeared because their bodies could not be found and their souls could not be summoned. Life without an opponent was lonely. Now, it was rare to meet Rongyue Tianlan. Perhaps it was because this person had stayed in other continents for thousands of years, but his martial arts were very strange. It made his heart itch and he had long wanted to fight with him. Previously he was anxious to help Xiejuk revive, so everything else was put aside. He had originally planned to wait for Xiejuk to successfully recover before going to find Rongyue Tianlan to spar. Now, there was no need for him to look for him. He could fight to his heart's content now. He clapped his hands and a pair of swords appeared in his hands. The two swords were soft swords, as bright as silver and as soft as silk. He then turned around and instructed Sect Master Zi Yun, "I'll leave that girl to you. Follow young master's instructions." Sect Master Zi Yun did not speak. He only slowly revealed his weapon, a strange and ancient scimitar. He had already paid the price for a moment of soft-heartedness, causing his fifth disciple to die in advance. He had almost failed. Now he could not be soft-hearted anymore. Since he was going to kill her sooner or later, he might as well use his ultimate move to give her a quick death. Although the fifth disciple, who was the key to this array, was dead, if he killed Rongyue Tianlan to fill in the array's core, then this array could be activated again. Although the effect was not as strong as before, it was still possible to restore 80 to 90% of young master's power. Everything was because of these two people's own deaths. As a friend and a master, he had already done his best for them. He could not be merciful anymore. Ji Xinyu also clenched her weapon tightly, her palms sweating. She knew that the moment of life and death was coming. Rongyue Tianlan stretched out his palm, and the sky-blue sword was held in his hand. A great battle was about to break out. Huang Liuqing's eyes burned with passion, her figure flashed, her movement technique pouncing towards Rongyue Tianlan like lightning. Sect Master Zi Yun moved almost at the same time as Huang Luqing, rushing towards Ji Xinyu. When the two of them rushed over, they brought with them a strong gust of wind. Before they even got close, their auras were already pressing down like mountains and seas. The moon god sword in Ji Xinyu's hand flashed, and just as she was about to rush forward, a golden light wave suddenly flashed in front of her eyes. That light wave rose abruptly and went straight for Sect Master Ziyun and Huang Luqing, who were rushing over, enveloping them within. The two of them collided with the golden light and were bounced back by the light. Ji Xinyu had never expected this situation. While she was stunned, Rongyue Tianlan suddenly grabbed her hand. "Xinyu, remember what I just said." Ji Xinyu's eyes widened. Before she could react, blood gushed out from Rongyue Tianlan's palm like a fountain, connecting with her palm that had just been drawn with the talisman. The place where their palms connected instantly condensed into a red enchantment, completely enveloping Ji Xinyu inside. "One more chapter. If you don't say stop, there will be." Chapter 3102. What are you doing? Ji Xinyu's expression changed. "I'll send you out." In the blink of an eye, Rongjui Shenlan's face had already become abnormally pale. He even smiled. "Xinyue, I said that I would fight for a third path for you." With a wave of his hand, he flew up with Ji Xinyue, who was wrapped in a blood-colored barrier. Ji Xinyue's body directly crashed into the blood demon barrier. Strangely enough, the blood demon barrier that couldn't be cut by blades and couldn't be burned by fire actually fused with the blood-colored barrier on her body. Ji Xinyue seemed to have fallen into a quagmire, and her body directly passed through the blood demon barrier. She subconsciously grabbed Rongjui Shenlan, wanting to pull him out as well, but she grabbed onto the blood demon barrier. She watched as her palm and Rongjui Shenlan's palm instantly separated. Through the translucent blood demon barrier, she could see that Rongjui Shenlan's body fell down the moment he sent her out. Ji Xinyue's hands and feet were cold. Before she could stabilize herself on the blood demon barrier, there was a wind behind her head. She also reacted quickly. Her body slanted out, and when she turned around, she saw Xieju's surprised and angry eyes. Xieju was seriously injured just now and felt that the blood demon barrier was safe. He no longer had anything to worry about and only needed to wait for the good news. Therefore, after he came out, he began to meditate and heal his injuries. Before he could meditate, he felt a slight vibration below his body. He opened his eyes in surprise and saw Ji Xinyue being sent out. He was shocked and furious. He wanted to sneak attack Ji Xinyue before she could stabilize herself, but he didn't expect this girl to be so smart and dodge like lightning. Ji Xinyue thought of Rongjui Shenlan's words, and when she saw Xieju again, her eyes turned red. If it wasn't for this person, how could she and Rongjui Shenlan be in this state? She didn't say much to Xieju. Without another word, the moon god sword had already attacked Xieju. Inside the blood demon barrier, Huang Luqing and Sect Master Ziyun obviously didn't expect Rongjui Shenlan to use this move. The thing he took out was called a sword, but with a sudden wave, it was a mountain and water fan. It was that mountain and water fan that instantly created a golden array, trapping the two of them inside. This golden array is also transparent. When Huang Luqing saw that Rongyue Tianlan had sent Ji Xinyu out of the blood devil barrier, she immediately panicked. The current Xieju was definitely not Ji Xinyue's match. Xieju was in danger. He and sect leader Ziyun looked at each other and immediately began to break the golden array. Although the golden array was powerful, it was not difficult for Huang Luqing and sect master Ziyun, who were proficient in array formations. The moment Rongjui Shenlan landed, the golden array emitted cracking sounds and was about to shatter. Once these two people escaped, they would definitely be like flood dragons emerging from the sea. Huang Luqing would immediately remove the blood demon barrier to resolve Xieju's danger, while sect master Ziyun would entangle Rongyue Tianlan. At that time they would still be able to turn defeat into victory. At most it would take some effort. This was Huang Liuqing's wishful thinking. Although his abacus was brilliant, he underestimated Rongyue Tianlan's mysterious skill. Just as the golden array was about to crack, Rongjui Shenlan, who had landed on the ground, pounced over and pressed his blood-stained palm on the golden light barrier. His blood was flowing, and in the blink of an eye the golden light barrier was dyed golden red. Miraculously, the cracks on the golden array disappeared. Huang Liuqing's expression really changed. He had estimated the strength of Xieju and Ji Xinyue. With Ji Xinyue's ability, she would definitely take Xieju's life in less than the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. Chapter 3103. That way all his previous efforts would be wasted. That would be a pain he could not bear. Xiejuk was resurrected by him using a forbidden technique. Once his soul was scattered, there would be no hope of condensing it again. It was useless to regret it now. He and Sect Master Ziyun began to frantically break the array. Rongyue Tianlan lay on the golden array, blood flowing out of his palm like it was free. Wherever Huang Luqing and the others were about to attack, that place was strengthened by the blood-formed talismans. Huang Luqing was so anxious that smoke was about to come out of her head. Rongyue Tianlan, your blood is limited. You can't hold on for long with this method. Quickly withdraw the array. I promise you, if you withdraw the array now, I can spare your and Ji Xinyue's lives. Rongyue Tianlan, withdraw the array. If anything happens to our young master, I will send both of you to the 18th level of hell, never to be reincarnated. Rongyue Tianlan. Huang Luqing quickly broke the array while threatening him, but Rongyue Tianlan acted as if he didn't hear it. He was still laughing. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, but he was still smiling calmly. His posture was not good, but his expression was like an elegant gentleman walking in the suburbs. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the two people in the golden-red array. He even had the heart to tease, I will indeed die, but I will drag you along with me. The 18th level of hell, right? You will die, but I won't. Huang Luqing still didn't understand Rongyue Tianlan's mysterious martial arts. It was true that Rongyue Tianlan had just become a Shangxin not long ago, but his most outstanding feature was not his martial arts, but his strange techniques. Rongyue Tianlan was a scattered immortal. He liked to hunt and learn new things. He had not only stayed in the Tianxi continent and the Fanyin continent, but also went to many places and learned some things that even he himself didn't know were useful or not. In terms of learning, even Xinjiuli couldn't compare to him. He was extremely smart, and his aptitude was not inferior to Xinjiuli's. It was just that he had too many hobbies, which made it difficult for him to concentrate on any special development. Therefore, in terms of kung fu, he was far from Xinjiuli. He was best at medicine and formations. According to his own words, he was a kind, compassionate immortal. He didn't like fighting and killing and preferred to find joy in curing difficult diseases. Of course, since he was exploring the outside world, he still needed to have the necessary defensive skills, so he excitedly cultivated all kinds of formations. Whenever he encountered someone who wanted to offend him before they could even get close to him, he would fan them into the array formation and knock them on the head. It was basically effortless for him, and even the folds of his clothes wouldn't be messed up. Over the years, there were many people who came to him for medical treatment. There were also many people who knew all kinds of martial arts. Among them, there was no lack of people who were outstanding in setting up arrays. Rongyue Tianlan used treating and saving people in exchange for the other party's secret array. In this way, he became the #1 expert in array formations. The shining golden array he had just set up had a nice name, Reincarnation Array. In fact, it was a mutual destruction array. Not only would the trapped person enter reincarnation and die, but even the person who set up the array couldn't escape death, or even die more miserably. Because this array was set up with the blood of the person who set up the array and 1 soul and 7 spirits. Once it was used, it would be a life or death situation. In the end, when the blood of the person who set up the array ran out, this reincarnation array would completely explode, and the people trapped in the array wouldn't even be left with ashes. Chapter 3104. Of course, the body of the person who laid down the array formation would also explode along with their soul, turning into particles in the air. The reason that Rongyue Shenlin had learned this array formation in the past was only for fun. After learning it, he had hidden it at the bottom of his chest. He never thought that there would be a day when he would be able to use this array formation. But he never imagined that he would be forced to use it today. This was the third path that he had thought of for Ji Xinyue. He would protect his own woman, he didn't need her to submit to some scum. He knew that she wouldn't submit either. Rather than both of them dying here, he might as well use his own death to sweep away all obstacles for her. No one would be able to threaten her again. Rongyue Shenlin was an expert at scheming. He had already calculated everything in his heart. He calculated that Ji Xinyue would be able to deal with Xiejuk in the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Then she would listen to him and leave this place, returning to Carefree Island. And he would be able to support this samsara array for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. At that time, Ji Xinyue would have left, and he would be able to drag the two people in the array formation down with him. To use his life in exchange for her life and also drag the 3 greatest scourges down with him, Rongyue Shenlin felt that this was worth it. As for Ji Xinyue's senior apprentice brothers, They could only wait for Shinjuli to come and clean up the mess for him. In his life, he had helped the great divinity clean up many messes. Now, it was finally the great divinity's turn to clean up for him. With the great divinity's abilities, he might be able to gather his shattered soul back together. After several hundred years, he would be able to be reborn as a hero once more. He believed that Shinjuli would do this after he arrived. He would also clearly explain things to Ji Xinyue so that she wouldn't be too sad about his death. Of course, with this thought in mind, Ji Xinyue wouldn't commit suicide. She would wait for him. If his soul was too shattered, Shinjuli wouldn't be able to gather it back together. After all, several hundred years had already passed. Time was the best medicine for healing pain. Even if he couldn't be revived, she wouldn't be too sad. In his last life, he owed her. In this life, he would also repay her with his life. This could be considered the heaven's samsara. His only regret was that he had courted death by rejecting this marriage and not being with her earlier. Rongyu Tianlan's estimation was correct. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Ji Xinyu had really taken care of Xiejuk. When the moon god's sword stabbed into Xiejuk's heart, Xiejuk's eyes widened with unwillingness. He finally asked, "Xinyu, have you ever liked me?" "No, never." "Where is Xie Fenglu? You've never liked her before?" "He has done so much for you. He's my junior brother. We're brothers." "Then he really isn't worth it. He has never treated you like a brother." Xiejuk finally closed his eyes, his heart filled with unwillingness. Ji Xinyue looked at the black fox that had returned to its original form at her feet, and was momentarily stunned. Killing him was not the end, she still needed to disperse his soul to completely cut off his path of resurrection. Ji Xinyu knew how to disperse his soul, but she did not know how to separate it. She still wanted to separate the part of her soul that belonged to Xie Fenglu, but she paused for a moment and then heard an angry roar from below. That roar was clear and mournful, causing the blood demon barrier beneath Ji Xinyu's feet to tremble slightly. This blood demon barrier was originally soundproof. Even if the sky and earth were to be turned upside down, they shouldn't be able to hear each other. But now this roar could be heard. It was obvious that the person who let out the roar had gone berserk. That was it. He bowed and thanked everyone for their rewards and votes. Chapter 3105. Ji Xinyu's eardrums were also buzzing from the shock. Her fingers suddenly tightened. This howl was Huang Liuqing's after all. Xiejuk was resurrected by him using a secret technique. The two of them had a special telepathic connection. Once Xiejuk died, Huang Liuqing could also sense it from inside. "Xinyu, leave quickly. Follow my instructions and split up." Rongyue Tianlan's voice rang in Ji Xinyu's ears. His voice was hurried, and there was a faint trace of weakness in his voice. Ji Xinyu was worried and tried her best to look down. Through the translucent blood barrier, she could faintly see Rongyue Tianlan lying on the golden-red erased light wave with a rather strange movement technique. The light wave was already shaking endlessly like a pendulum and was about to break. She could not see Rongyue Tianlan's appearance clearly, but she strangely felt that he was rapidly weakening. He might not be able to escape. He just wanted to save her. Ji Xinyu faintly felt that something was wrong and made up her mind. "Rongyue Tianlan, if you want to leave, let's leave together. Stop talking nonsense. Leave quickly." Rongyue Tianlan was already anxious and rarely spoke harshly to her. Huang Liuqing in the golden-red barrier below had already gone crazy, and was about to break out. He was afraid that he would not be able to hold on until the moment his blood ran out, and would have to self-destruct to prevent the situation from falling into a passive state again. "Alright, I'll leave. Rongyue Tianlan, I want you to live. If anything happens to you, I don't want to live either." Ji Xinyu could no longer enter inside, so she naturally could not help him. Although she was extremely worried about Rongyue Tianlan, she did not want to be his stumbling block. So she would listen to his orders and leave, but not too far away. She had to see him come out alive with her own eyes. Rongyue Tianlan could no longer answer Ji Xinyu's words. His blood had already run dry and his self-destruction had entered the 10-second countdown. "Rongyue Tianlan, Ji Xinyu, I will kill you. I will let you die with Juk." Huang Liuqing was already mad with anger and recklessly rampaged inside. Seeing that he was about to break the golden-red barrier, Rongyue Tianlan's fingers formed a seal, and was about to completely detonate. Suddenly, a string of zither sounds came from outside. The zither sound seemed to float from the sky, but it went straight into the blood barrier, allowing everyone inside the barrier to hear it clearly. Rongyue Tianlan's body suddenly stiffened. His eyes suddenly lit up. The sound of the zither, Shinjoli. In the blink of an eye, the golden red array beneath him shattered with a bang. The Samsara array was finally broken by Huang Luqing and Sect Master Zi Yun. The huge airwave directly sent Rongyue Tianlan, who was lying on the golden red array diagram, flying. Rongyue Tianlan's body crashed into the blood demon shield above his head like a paper kite. The demonic blood shield was extremely poisonous, comparable to the strongest sulfuric acid. If it wasn't for the protective barrier around him, he would definitely be poisoned and might even melt. Rongyue Tianlan's qi and blood were almost exhausted. Being sent flying like this, he couldn't make a protective barrier at all. Just as his body was about to hit the blood demon barrier, the barrier that couldn't be opened no matter what he did actually broke with a pa sound. Rongyue Tianlan's body passed through the fragments and flew straight into the air. Pooh! He crashed into a cotton-like soft place. Before he lost consciousness, he vaguely saw a man in a white robe and a woman in red standing not far away. He heaved a sigh of relief and spat out a few words, "I'll leave it to you." Then he felt relieved and boldly closed his eyes. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.